Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Ricada of Ricada Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. And with me today in studio is Tim, and remotely is Ty Beard. How are you guys?
Good. Been a long day.
Thanks for that top shelf, high quality, massive energy input of good.
20 shots, guys.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah. What time did we crash last night, Nick? Or did I bailed on y'all.
You bailed. We went till 4:20 in the morning.
Okay. I think I got a whole 2.5 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
My phone started going off the minute they discovered those ballots in Wisconsin. And I'm like, don't you people sleep? So
yeah.
So
I didn't, one thing I noticed about yesterday's show is, as a host, I failed the chat a little bit. And that was, my failure to properly introduce Tim and to let the audience kind of know why you were on the show in the first place. Right?
Right.
Like, which probably led to you getting a lot
I was
of heat.
mortified by it. Your mistake, Nick.
Good. See, but you mistake what I'm saying as an apology, and it's not. It's not an apology. It's just an acknowledgement. But
rookie mistake, and I hate to make it. Yeah.
But Tim is here because you specialize in elections. Analysis of polling data and stuff. So some people last night probably thought you were interjecting just as some random guy.
And you know what? I'm okay with that illusion.
I was going to say,
right?
And that would be different from the rest of your guests. How precisely?
Well, the difference, and I think this is actually, to Tim's credit, has borne out many of the cautions that he was giving us at the beginning of the night and throughout the night turned out late in the 11th hour to be true. And now we're stuck right now looking at a couple states, and really 2 states are the big question marks. Georgia's a small question mark. Pennsylvania is a huge question mark.
Huge.
And then Nevada is Nevada and Arizona are both a huge question mark.
Yes.
However, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, those 3 states decide the election unless something dramatic happens in Georgia.
Or the recount. Something happens in a recount in Wisconsin, Michigan.
Right.
Yeah.
And I am not a fan of recount 3-pointers. But I think there's some interesting things with this recount that make it potentially a little bit different. And so we're going to talk about that.
Very distinguishable.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that as the show goes on. We're going to, there's some results that are going to drop around 25 minutes, allegedly, coming out of, we believe, Nevada, right? Did we decide that's where they're coming from?
I believe, yes, there's going to be an update from Nevada. There may also be a small update out of Georgia, Fulton County specifically. And
that's supposed to be in about an hour, just under an hour.
Yeah.
So we'll be watching very close the updates in Nevada and Georgia while we go. I'm actually going to put the map away for now.
Don't want to cause anyone a heart attack right in the middle of the show.
Right. So the map is going to go away for now, but I've got the map up. We're going to talk about a couple different things. We're going to talk about what happened. We're going to talk about what's still going on. We're going to talk about everybody has been sending me the link to the Michigan Secretary of State website and their general election thing. And I want to clarify why that number is so vastly different. And you should probably put your hopes of Michigan away on this first count. A recount is possible. It's very unlikely. And then I think we would do well to maybe address lots of the alleged voter fraud that is circulating around social media. Because I have
a lot of
garbage. Let's be very clear. There's a lot of questionable activity that's been caught on camera, that's been reported. But I don't want people to come under some illusion that the vote police are going to come save the day
No.
on these election day shenanigans.
Are you telling me that the FBI is not going to come and bail out Trump?
If
Not
if
so
the
much,
executive branch deployed the Federal Bureau of Investigation to go punish his political enemies and rescue a failed vote, we have a real big problem happening immediately. So I get it. Project Veritas video with the mail stuff, very interesting and compelling.
And happens in virtually every election ever.
The discussions, the discussions of the stuff going on in Detroit, again, very interesting. The result of those things, probably not going to ever even see a courtroom. They're certainly not going to overturn an election on these types of things. So
no, we can talk about some of the strategies though that might have some. I mean,
yes,
it is not over. You're
Not over till
harshing my
it's over.
mellow. You're harshing my mellow, Nick, with your downer.
I'm not. I'm not trying to be a downer. What I don't want people to go.
You are.
No, I don't want people to go. Well, there's like 10,000 votes that got overcounted in this place or undercounted or whatever. It's though the vote will be cast on the ballots counted, and so that's how you have to. That's how you have to do it, because let's say there were 10,000 more votes in a particular county. Well, which 10,000 votes are the extras? And who are they for? We don't track by voter who they vote for. There's no verification process. So what'll happen in any of these things is if there's a recount, they'll literally recount the votes.
I of course have done my homework.
I'm like Amy Coney Barrett. I don't have notes.
So I wanted to ask you guys, to set an early tone, have you ever recalled a race where a judge said that the error was so egregious that we need to discard the result and do the race again?
No.
So I apologize for dragging Canada into this, but it's the case that I'm familiar with. There was a case in Guelph one year.
Oh,
the city of Guelph in southern Ontario. A political staffer got a burner cell phone and ordered a phone company to send pre-recorded messages out to voters saying that their voting location changed, and sent them to the wrong location. So that staffer is in jail, but the judge did not set aside the result of that election for a error so egregious like that. Still wasn't enough to set the result aside.
That's not going to be. I think you'd agree with me. That will not be the remedy here. But there are remedies that are possible. Real quick, Nick, I want to tell you guys in the stream and everything. So when I got off the show last night, my wife, in her inimitable way, said, "Honey," called me honey. "How much of this medicine that I just started taking did you take?" I said, "Well, 2. The bottle says 1." I went, "Oh." Oh, okay. She said, "Well, you were just a little bit high strung last night." So if I was a little high strung to the chat, or to you, Nick, or to you, Tim. Well, actually, never mind, Nick, but Tim, I do apologize. I was apparently impaired and didn't really quite know it. But so anything I said, I wasn't in my right head. So
well, good.
It was, your loved ones can tell these things even when you can't.
But for all the for all the doom and gloom saying I'm offering right now, there like my guests have said, it's not over till it's over. Just because they won't redo an election, because they're not likely to do that in any way. They are very possibly going to be recounting some states, and we'll talk about what that has looked like in the past, what it looks like in this election, which has some special challenges for it, and all of that stuff. So we're going to be getting into all this stuff. But I guess from an initial standpoint, guests, should we look at where we stand? Because since we ended the show, some things have definitely changed. We had, I've pulled up the map here, and we've got Wisconsin and Michigan now have both been called for Joe Biden. And Oh, go ahead, Ty.
I said, I seem to remember saying at some point, and I think it was in regard to Michigan, that, I had a whole spreadsheet out, that with the amount of votes left, the only way Biden would have any chance would be if he, basically had them all awarded to him. And of course, that would never happen. So, it might be fun to maybe describe what we think led us, like apparently every other pundit on the planet, by the way, we were in good company, to kind of agree that, yeah, it was pretty much over. And as an aside, we should have picked up on Trump's body language and his tone. That was an awfully belligerent, speech he gave for someone who was ahead. And I missed it. I think Trump has said this was coming. He has consistently said this is exactly what they're going to do, and I think he was fully prepared for it. But anyway, why did we miss the call? I mean, why were we?
Well, I think we had some. Interestingly, I think my mom had a comment in the show, and she ended up being, I think, right, and that was
sorry
probably
about that, Nick.
Yeah, it was because I think we were mistaken on when the mail-in votes were being counted in specifically Wisconsin and Michigan. The mail-in votes from Wisconsin and Michigan, or Wisconsin specifically, were counted at the end. And that's where we saw a big boost in Joe Biden's numbers. This allegedly, this is what they're saying, a big boost in Joe Biden's numbers around 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And if you'll remember, there was 119,000 votes that came in, a net gain of that for Joe Biden. I believe they have explained as the mail-in voting records coming in. They were counted at the end rather than at the beginning. So when my mom asked, what about mail-in ballots changing the way some states are called, she was prescient in that, and I think my understanding was that they would be counting those already, but they did not.
That's something the stream ought to be aware of too. Is that so today I set out as prep for this to find out how many absentee ballots were requested, sent out, and returned and counted. Okay, in all the states. You would think there might be a website somewhere where they just simply say that. Well, if there is, I was unable to find. I had to stitch this data together from multiple sources. And of course, Wisconsin doesn't have a centralized reporting system. So what AP and the rest of them are doing is literally tallying the individual county websites, which, by the way, are not consistently designed or anything. So,
right.
And so that was part of it too. Had someone said, okay, guys, look, for instance, there's 1.6 million absentee ballots that have been received by Wisconsin and have not yet been counted. I kind of think we might have said, oh,
right.
But we didn't have that data.
Yep. And that's a big problem with how this vote has been different than the other votes. Especially in election night prognostication. And I kind of referenced that for the big news networks being hesitant to call places like Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, even waiting on Florida and Texas for a very long time. It depended really on how they're getting their data. And I want to briefly talk about Michigan, because how Michigan's data has come into the newspapers is not how Michigan's data has come into the Michigan Secretary of State. And this is causing people...
What is up with that?
Yeah, this is causing people a lot of confusion because the Michigan Secretary of State only reports when an entire county is completed.
Oh, okay. See, I had clients all day calling me saying, Michigan is gone. And I'm like, I'm looking right at the Secretary of State site going, I'm not seeing it. And finally I was like, holy crap.
Now the numbers that are being reported to news sites like Politico, New York Times, or whatever that you see when you click on there, that those include the precincts in Wayne County, specifically Detroit, which is one of the 2 counties that has not been counted on the Michigan Secretary of State website. The problem is On the Michigan Secretary of State website, Trump holds a lead of like 170,000 votes in Michigan. And in Wayne County alone, once those get official, Biden is going to pick up 300,000 votes in Detroit. Those just aren't on there yet. They are counted because the precincts had some way to feed that data into a system as they came in, even though the whole county's not done. So that's the discrepancy you're seeing on the Secretary of State website versus the newspaper websites. And the Secretary of State's website definitely still shows Trump in the lead, but once they update and add Detroit, he's going to lose. The other county that's not reporting has not reported any votes yet. It also only has 23,000 people. So if every single person in that county votes for Trump twice, he still loses.
Well,
so you should probably...
Where was the big asterisk that I overlooked where it said, hey, warning, we're only reporting counties, where was that on that site?
It's up. When you look at the general election data, it says 81 out of 83 county, 81 out of 83 counties reporting.
No, what I'm saying is where was the Secretary of State website alert? Hey, we're only reporting complete things. You're saying... It says,
I
got you.
Yeah, 81 out of 83 counties completed.
81 had reported. The problem is those two that hadn't are not represented at all, I guess, right?
Right. So the Detroit numbers aren't in there. And the way, I'll tell you my methodology for figuring this out, Tim and I worked it out here, was we took the total number of votes that have been counted on the news sites. We subtracted out the total number of votes that are reported on the Secretary of State. We realized the discrepancy is somewhere in the neighborhood of 750 to 800,000 votes. Yeah. And lo and behold, that's the difference.
The Wayne County is going to end up pulling 650,000, I think, is going to be their vote total, and maybe closer to 700.
Yeah.
And
I think
it's breaking
we're like 135,000 down.
Oh, it's going to break 70%.
Yeah, it breaks 70% for Biden. That's where he makes it up. So again, I know many people are looking at that, trying to hold on to Michigan as an idea. Michigan is
we're not winning.
Lost.
We're not winning this straight up. And if Trump's right, well, of course you're not. You never play blackjack with a crooked dealer and expect to win. Right.
So then, so then what is the path for Trump then? Because we still have a lot of states that haven't been called. I don't know why they're not calling Alaska. It's ridiculous. I looked at the numbers in Georgia.
Yeah.
Biden has a long road to make up the votes in Fulton County because the rest of the counties that haven't reported in Georgia are not going to be as friendly to him as Atlanta is. So we're supposed to get that Fulton County update tonight. We'll have a pretty good idea if Georgia's all sealed up.
Yeah, the math suggests to me at least that Georgia is as safe as it gets. I mean, it's at least as safe as Michigan was last night. It looks to me like that obviously Wisconsin and Michigan are, since they've already been called for Biden, they're a problem. I think my extrapolation is that Pennsylvania, that they're going to pick up anywhere from 50 to 100. Biden's going to end up with a $50,000 to $100,000 vote. Well,
$1 too.
50 to 100, 50 to 100,000 votes over Trump. And all I'm doing is I'm just extending out the trends.
Where are you saying this is?
Pennsylvania.
So you think Biden's going to take Trump out in Pennsylvania?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I think that 50,000 to 100,000, and I derive that by simply looking at how much is left and applying the existing proportions. Obviously, that doesn't have to be true. So, but I think we should be prepared for that. And listen, it doesn't matter anyway, right? Because whether we're going to have this fight, we might as well have it in all of them. You asked the question, Tim, about the path. Here's what I think. I think that, so here's some statistics that are relevant to this discussion. And Tim, I'd be real curious if these statistics vary from what you've observed in your job. In 2018, 14.28% of absentee ballots were rejected because they were defective in some way. They weren't signed properly, weren't executed, whatever. I thought the actual proportion was higher, but does that sound rational to you?
I mean, it can be all over the place.
Yeah.
You'll find that the education of any county is correlated with how many ballots get rejected for incompetence.
Okay.
Now, that's not
Well,
the total.
Things don't look well for Detroit.
Yeah.
No, I mean, well, in all
Now,
seriousness, education.
Not following the instructions is only a part of why a ballot would be rejected. Some
Yeah.
people do send in the mail-in ballot, but they're concerned that it's not going to get there in time, so then they go and vote in person. Well, one of those has to be
Right.
discarded.
Right.
They'll discard the mail-in.
But but you don't think 14% is a particularly ridiculously high proportion of that, do you? I mean,
Hard to say, really.
okay.
There's also people who intentionally spoil their ballot, and I'm wondering if that 14% also includes that, right? The people
Well,
who
I
are like,
understand.
I'm voting for none of you.
Understand this is over. This is over. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of absentee ballots. This is not a. It's not a small sample. In other words, it's pretty broad.
Yeah.
Well,
so,
humor me and assume that number. That's the best number we got.
okay.
Yeah, humor me and assume that number is rational. Okay.
Ty's been doing napkin math all day. I can tell. This is great.
Yeah,
It's a regular Ralph
graph
Klein.
paper.
Shout out to my
Yeah.
local people.
Yeah. So one of the things initially right out of the chute, so there's that percentage. The other percentage is roughly the number of absentee ballots is roughly 10 times as many as has happened any time in the past. Okay. So we're talking about a fundamental difference in the shape of how the votes are being cast. My opinion is, if I'm doing my math right, if Donald Trump gets 3% of the ballots tossed out in each of those states, he's going to win those states. That will recover the votes, taking into account, that some of them are going to be for him, and applying the proportions that they're reporting, how they split up Democrat and Republican. So honestly, this is not over by a damn sight, because that's 1/5 of what we've observed. The rate being. Would you like to know what the percentage of rejections was in these 3 states?
Go for it.
Yes. Take your lowball guess.
I'm going to say, because I'm gonna lowball it around 7%.
Okay, Nick.
What am I guessing?
The number of ballots that were rejected.
That were actually rejected in this round.
The mail-in.
In this election.
In those 3 states.
In these 3 states, yeah.
Lowball 4%.
You guys suck. Y'all are so far off, it's not funny. Go lower. Go a lot lower.
1%.
Damn it, Nick, you suck. Try 0.1%.
So 0.1% of mail-in and absentee ballots have been rejected.
So what that tells me is, number one, the scrutineers weren't doing their job properly. Number two, they were very hesitant to reject a ballot. So when it goes to recount, the judge gets to say on whether a ballot is rejected or not.
Yeah.
Judicial recount. Sorry, that's judicial recount.
I believe that is the Trump strategy right there in a nutshell. I think, if the number that I quoted is somewhere in the neighborhood, I think that's got to be Trump's strategy. They're not going to rerun the election. The courts just don't do that. Like you pointed out, they're not going to do that. And the thing is, he's going to get multiple bites at this. He's going to get the states. 2 of the states he qualifies for an automatic recount, so he'll get a bite at it during the recount. He then can argue that anything that wasn't thrown out should have been thrown out, as well as the entire concept of these. We'll see how well that we can hash that out later. But I think that is the core strategy that Trump has intended to pursue from the get-go. It's implied in the way he framed his speech last night. And I don't think this came as any big surprise to him. I really don't. I mean, I've been thinking about this hard. He's been saying all along that this is what was going to happen. Now, so in 2 of the states, Wisconsin and Michigan, their absentee ballots had to be in on election day or before. Pennsylvania's got that bizarre, we can just keep counting apparently, because wherever. No, you can't see where I got the numbers from, because I got them from about 15 or 20 different websites. Go knock yourself out. This is, look, I mean, it doesn't really matter what the specific numbers are. It's the magnitude. When you've got, so just FYI, so Wisconsin, they said, oh, yeah, here's another thing. In all of these states, these ballots were supposed, by law, were supposed to have been requested. There's some ambiguity on one of the states, but I think the law says you have to request them. Well, Nick, legal challenge, right? Show me that these were requested and not just shotgunned out there.
Yeah,
Show me that they were
actually
validly returned.
In many states, absentee ballots were sent out automatically without request.
Yeah,
And,
these states don't seem to be that way.
Right. So then the argument would be if they were sent out automatically, for example, in these states, the argument would be, was there some compounding factor of COVID that would allow the state's executive in a time of emergency to issue these absentee ballots?
That's what and obviously that's what the state would argue.
Right.
But I don't think that, here's the thing. I think we got a good chance of the Supreme Court holding the states to their laws. Whether the laws are constitutional, there's two stages of the inquiry. Is your law constitutional under the U.S. Constitution? If so, are you applying it? And I guess there's actually a third one. Is it constitutional under your own constitution? I'm going to assume that the Supreme Courts of these states are not going to interfere in this. I think that's should be a safe assumption. But so for example, Wisconsin, they said 2 million were requested and 1.6 million returned. And for all practical purposes, I had the exact count on some of these, this is a Michigan. Michigan was 3.1 million requested, but it's ambiguous. Never could quite. There was part of the problem too is when they reported what was returned, they would report it like on October 29th. And so, but end of story, 3.1 million ballots were returned. It looked to me like, and if this is true, this is real interesting, about 3.1 million were requested. So, and by the way, here are the statistics. Of the 3.1 million returned, sorry, my notes are confusing me now. So in Michigan, of the 3.1 million that were returned, 1,856 were rejected. So that's actually less than 0.1%.
Sure.
Pennsylvania, the numbers are somewhat similar. You've got 2.6 million returned, 3 million requested. So these are big numbers, and Trump doesn't have to invalidate very many of these until he's got a fight on his hands.
Well, he might.
The $50 question is the court going to do its job?
There is the other option for the path to victory. And that's where, if you're not correct on Pennsylvania numbers, because, and the only reason you might not be is because there aren't, we've been talking about this, the majority of the votes uncounted in Pennsylvania are not coming out of Philadelphia. Philadelphia has a big chunk, but the rest of the state also has quite a few votes. That would definitely
affect, because I think what I'm saying is that 2/3 of the votes are going to be for Biden and 1/3 are going to be for Trump.
Right. And in Philly, that's
that made
true.
The calculation easy.
But if I remember right, Philly only has like 300,000 out of the expected 800,000 remaining ballots.
Yeah.
So that chunk can trend, 2-1 for Biden. Then it switches for the more rural areas of Pennsylvania that have mail-in votes. So
if we hang on to Pennsylvania, of course, you have that interesting path of flipping Nevada or Arizona.
Yeah, you need one of two. Either one of those will get you to victory.
And actually, both of them doesn't really help you except to add to your vote. My whole staff is now creating maps of elections. It's really sad.
Really, so the path that Trump has to victory is Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, all of them getting taken, and either Nevada or Arizona. There's no other way to do it. Nevada, Arizona, and Alaska don't make up for any of these other three
That
states.
would be the very best thing that could happen to the country at this particular juncture, because then you could just simply say, you know what, the Midwest doesn't matter, and we can avoid this. Unfortunately, I don't think Donald Trump's going to do that, regardless. But
And yes,
the thing
guys,
is, though, I'm not seeing that. They're only 8,000 off in Nevada, but I'm not. That gap seems to be tracking. I don't see them closing any grounds on that. Have y'all?
well, they haven't. I mean, they haven't updated that count.
Oh, that's right.
They haven't updated that count.
Nevada cut off there. Yeah.
It's been what? It's 17 hours, I think, since they've updated that number. We're supposed to get an update. It's supposed to have happened 3 minutes ago, in Nevada. So we don't know what the status of that is.
Tim, have you ever heard of a situation where the polling places just shut down for the night?
I have, but only for primaries.
Right. I mean, but for like a national, highly
No.
contested.
No,
I mean,
and like,
the optics of some of this stuff is just,
yeah, like
Yeah.
sending everyone home. If they had just said, "Hey, due to COVID, we're sending everyone home," that is, I could buy that. I mean, I wouldn't buy it very well, and a lot of people
No.
wouldn't or shouldn't. But at least that's a believable excuse.
Yeah. Where's the chain of cut? I mean, that's so stream. One of the things that Nick was getting at earlier, and forgive me. So here's the day in my life today, right? I crash after your show, and I might have been asleep 2 hours, maybe. All of a sudden,
Right.
bzz, 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 bzz. And I'm like, oh shit. Tell me that we're not going to lose, and I'm like, oh, before I went to bed, I said on Facebook, Trump's won, Wisconsin, question mark? I said, and I lay there and I go, wait a minute, Wisconsin. So I pull out the iPad, Wisconsin, what? So, I mean, and so basically all day long, I've been having the exact same conversation with clients all day long. And of course, it evolved as the day went on. But yeah, a lot of these irregularities that are turning up on the internet happen in every election to some degree. When you got millions and millions of votes, right, it's actually pretty hard to commit meaningful fraud. I mean, you got to, we're in a different world now when half the votes total that are cast are essentially unaccountable type votes. This is third world country kind of fraud we're talking about. I mean, that's the way I see it. Do y'all disagree? I mean,
Oh my God, I'm trying to find this story. Someone was asking. They were saying, wasn't Nevada going to update their stuff at 9 a.m. tomorrow? Yes, but they said they were planning on updating results today because of the whatchamacallit, because of everybody's interest in it.
AP says they just updated now, but there's no update. I mean, it's exactly the same as it was 2 hours ago. They're 8,000 apart and 75% reporting.
Let me see about I'm checking the person who tweeted it out from Nevada's Twitter. Nevada elections.
Let's see.
Task force.
The reason I'm leaning over is the camera is it's right in my line of sight. So sorry. Let's see.
They might have deleted that tweet because it's reported on it. They reported on it, but now that tweet doesn't exist anymore. So this is
the primary time I wake up. Good grief. I was trying to find. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of that tonight, I'm afraid. Oh, there we go. I'm at their. Okay, so I'm looking at their. Oh my God. We shouldn't make this information easy to find or anything because nobody cares. Well, anyway.
But here's the ultimate reality is that we still have these outstanding states. We may get an update tonight, we may not. There is a practical possible path to victory. People shouldn't get their hopes up either way on it.
No,
It will be what it will be, and either way, you can expect a fight. Trump is sounding the war horns now. If Trump ekes out this election by winning 3 narrowly decided states and then Nevada or Arizona flipping, the Biden campaign will be.
You can count on the hypocrisy.
Yeah, they'll turn that Volvo on and start driving it straight to the supermarket. Okay, but let me just reiterate again: Alaska does not matter in the electoral vote counts at this point. There is no combination where Alaska factors in for people.
I agree.
So Alaska is not called. It just doesn't matter. It's likely break for Trump.
There's 2 paths, like you say. It's either going to be the Nevada-Arizona path, or it's going to be fighting it out in the court. And I sure hope I'm wrong about Pennsylvania. But
I am seeing an update from the expected Fulton County, Georgia. Allegedly, they're going to stop counting at 3 a.m. Eastern time, but that's been extended. They're going to try and get through the remaining 20,000 ballots and then post that result as soon as they can. So going into the wee hours of, in the morning here.
We'll see if we're still going here. I don't know if we will be or not. I don't think Ty will not be, but we'll see what Tim and I end up doing.
Nick, I had that experience as a lawyer. You'll appreciate this, Tim. You've probably had similar in your job. I talked to everybody I needed to talk to. I handled the business I needed to handle at the office, and I was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, whenever it was. And I go home and I see that glorious, blessed bed, and I'm just about to do a swan dive into it.
Yeah.
And my phone rings, and I'm like, oh, I hadn't talked to him about the election yet. Okay. Hey, man, what's up? Hey, I need you to meet me at this restaurant. I got this big business deal I got to run by you, and the bankers are here, blah, blah. I was like, so, I mean, I'm not complaining, but what I mean is like, I just don't want to go to sleep. So I called you actually after that meeting. That's when I called you and said, we got to have a,
Yeah, we got to talk about this because it's going
to.
What?
I don't like it when we blow it like this.
I blame you.
Virtually explicate ourselves or something.
Look, I blame you entirely. You got me excited.
Everybody else did. I felt like the weatherman this morning. That gets blamed for the bad weather. It's like,
it rained on me and it's your fault.
Let me hit.
I know some weathermen. That is a real thing, by the way.
Let me hit a couple of the super chats. I do want to talk about Arizona and Nevada as well, like what it looks like for those two. In all honesty, I think Arizona might be more likely than Nevada. It's really close.
Think that the casino business would, I don't know, not vote for the guy that's going to shut the state down?
You would think so, but who knows? Shamu13 says Cecil took the money he made from his comic book cash grab, around $250,000, and he ran. That dude took the money and deleted all of his social media. We must find that bastard. Where is Cecil? I have no idea. Andrew War Snowboard says the Ilhan Munadi must be stopped. Of course, they had to use fake ballots to create the facade they are winning. Sounds like they weren't accepting the results of the election. Bad Vibe says, okay, in a state vote in federal positions, if a state majority votes none, can the state withhold its electoral vote? And inversely, can a state choose not to have a representative/senator? Not that I recommend it. A state can, I guess they could choose not to have a representative/senator if that representative or senator steps down and a governor doesn't do an appointment to fill the seat.
Just can't imagine why on earth you do that.
But withholding the electoral vote, it's state by state. How their electors are designating their votes is up to them. So
yeah, I suspect. It seems like, don't quote me on this. I think if a state said we're not going to send any electors to the Electoral College, I think they can't possibly let that pass, right? I mean, maybe what it would be they'd say, fine, we'll recalculate the majority with your electors taken out. I guess
I mean, they're electors. In theory, the Electoral College, like absent state statute, your electors from the states could go in and vote for whoever they wanted.
Right.
They just have a duty to pick a president and a vice president.
But what
There's
if a
not a
state
list.
said, we're not going to send any electors? Any?
I mean, I guess
What
in
if-
theory they could.
What if the liberal legislature and liberal governor of a state decided they didn't like who their citizens voted for? It can't be that easy because somebody would have tried it by now.
Yeah, I feel like the state Supreme Courts would be mandamusing the legislature to send the electors. I think that's...
And the U.S. Supreme Court might get involved
maybe.
to enforce state law, maybe. Who knows? Yeah. I don't know why anybody did. Guys, don't waste any energy on Ilhan Omar. Nobody cares. That district was never going to be occupied by a conservative. So who
I
cares?
think that was a joke. The Ilhan
well,
Munati.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's been.
Puggernaut says...
the crazier, the better.
Puggernaut says, on the plus side, Trump improved in several minority voting demographics. Unfortunately, he didn't try to appeal to the ballot boxes that got opened at 4 a.m. demographic. Zarni Kuro Schwartz,
A rookie mistake, and you hate to see it.
Says in Trump voice, Senior Joe, the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you on election day. I don't know. They didn't, though. They haven't spelled disaster for Joe.
Which numbers?
Yeah.
Well, guys, I don't like to just jump to the conclusion that fraud exists. When my team loses, my normal conclusion, my normal reaction is, what the hell did we do wrong, and how are we going to fix it? But it sure would make the other aspects of the election make sense if this is just due to fraud. Because on what planet do you cream the Democrats in Florida and you can't win any of the Midwest? I mean, it doesn't sound right.
I think you discount just how much Trump does turn off many Republican voters.
Well, there's no question. Yeah, no, I don't discount that anymore.
I think a lot of people were kind of not factoring in that for some Republican voters, Trump is just very much a turnoff. His behavior.
I did something I don't usually do on Facebook. I actually swore in written communication. I had a never Trumper who follows me on Facebook come in with his smug bullshit, and I said, guys, I said, Donald Trump is going to leave this country in far better shape than he found it. We're going to have a 6-3 Supreme Court, hundreds of federal judges. You never Trumper shitheads would have turned this country over to Hillary Clinton. So this is not the day I want to listen to your carping, I think you're absolutely right. Let me fix something here, guys. I'll be right back.
Yep, no problem. Let's see. Bad Vibe says this election is lasting too long. Damn Viagra. No, you're fine. He can't even hear me yet. Fujimura Pantsu says, last night your friend didn't get winning, quote, beyond the threshold of fraud. One of the last things he said before leaving was, I just don't see the math for Biden to win. Wonder if he now grasps what that means in the USA.
I'd say the point's been received.
Random Blaze says, the fix is in. Reports of massive voter fraud are showing up all over. Poll watchers are being kicked out of areas, and suitcases of votes are being brought in and counted with no one watching. I caution people on stories like that. They may be. But again, at the end of the day, if the votes are counted, the votes are ending up counting. And then the question is the recount. The question is a recount. And they'll have to go in and try and invalidate votes that are counted. Does it suck? Yes. If the fraud is happening, it sucks. If there's a truckload of mail from Wisconsin or Michigan or wherever, where the mail-in ballots were late and they were stamped for the earlier day and then sent out to the express machines as alleged in the Project Veritas video, great. how do you get those ballots separated out of the count after they're in? There's like, I know that all of these reports of fraud are coming in, and that's wonderful to report on. But the practical effect now is not, well, we're going to have to go redo something. They don't know.
It's not going to happen, guys. It's just not.
You can't go into a court and say, well, this ballot came in this way. Presumably, the envelope is stamped and the envelope is discarded when the ballot's counted.
So that's an interesting point. I know this is true of one of the states. I can't remember which state it is. It might have been Pennsylvania. It might have been Wisconsin. But so the mechanism was when you requested the ballot, it was sent to you. You received a pin or something, and you could track that they had received your ballot back and that they had in fact counted it. That means that means there's a trail.
Yeah, but there's a trail that the ballot was received.
Well,
which
but
is
what
great.
I mean is, the point is that's an easy to access trail, right?
But hear me out, though. Okay, so that ballot comes in an envelope, right? Ty Beard's absentee ballot, pin number or whatever. They remove the ballot. They bloop scanned in. They've got it. They take the ballot out of the envelope. They feed it into the voting tally machine. What happens to the envelope? And now it's separated from the ballot.
Yeah, I understand. I'm sorry. That's not what I was getting at.
Oh, okay.
What I'm getting at is they can track the fact that there is an electronic system basically that's tracking presumably your request and their response to your request and your return of the ballot. Remember, that's part of the challenge I think that Trump's going to be geared up to make. So it's not my actual point was just this. There may be a lot more tracking ability on this stuff than we might think. It just depends, on what you're trying to track. But no, I agree with you. It's, I think, a waste of energy and time in your life to sit here obsessing over, this polling center locked these people out. That the war's not going to be won or lost on that kind of stuff. It's going to be won or lost by getting these absentee ballots discarded. Because my wife would point. I said, well, what about those? They had those ballots that were military ballots. I said, honey, it was 12 ballots out of millions cast. I mean, it's unfortunate that happened, but it's not. Yes, I see the fraud. What I'm trying to tell you is it's not going to matter. You can sit around and bitch about the fraud all you want. I'm talking to the stream, obviously. You can sit around and bitch about the fraud all you want. Please don't waste my time with it. We're trying to tell you what the best way Trump's got to fight this, and squabbling over a polling center locking somebody out ain't going to get it done. There's too many of them. There's literally thousands of them per state. You can't win that fight. The question I have, Nick, is there a U.S. constitutional angle on these ballots that Trump can meaningfully go at?
U.S. constitutional issue is tough. The lawsuits that are filed in state court. And the reason that the lawsuits should be filed in state court is exactly what the Supreme Court did in Wisconsin when they filed in federal court. The Supreme Court said that it was improper for federal courts to step into the method and means of how a state casts its ballots. So that's one thing that's really hard for people to grasp, is that if you think that a state ballot collection measure is done illegally, and even if it would be illegal in your state, it's not necessarily illegal in a different state, because the states set their ballot measures. The states have plenary authority on how they do their elections. The Congress has some authority on when election day occurs and is finalized. But here's the really crazy thing. If a state wanted to accept all ballots by mail, presumably they could, or only mail-in ballots, or only walk-in ballots. And there'd be very little that the federal government would be able to do about it. So what the Trump campaign has done and has to do to challenge these state level elections is to file in the state courts about violations of state election laws, not federal election laws, which I know is very confusing because this is a federal election. But the Constitution authorizes the states and empowers them to define the terms by which they choose their electors. So, and remember, you're not actually voting for a president. You're voting for an elector who will choose the president. So it's kind of a messy system.
Well, it's a system we've got. You know,
Right.
I had the same thing with the young man.
I'll be right back, guys.
He was So, has there been any kind of Canadian analogs, this kind of stuff, Tim, in your experience?
Well, the fact we don't have an electoral college. So like I mentioned last night, when I was talking to Viva, we have just a simple majority. If you control the 4 biggest cities in Canada, you will win the election, hands down.
Yeah, that was a very interesting point.
So
you were making the argument that our founders, you know,
well, they were
obviously
smarter.
found persuasive. Yeah.
They were smarter than our founders.
Well,
I don't actually
stuck with
mean
the
that.
British.
They had a different goal in mind, right? The American founders wanted to balance urban-rural divide, whereas the Canadian founders said, well, it's a true majority of the people.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. There was, you know, that the earliest political split in our country were the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, and the Federalists could fairly be described as the urban class, and the Anti-Federalists were the rural class. Thomas Jefferson was Anti-Federalist. John Adams was the Federalist. We had those battles have been going on forever.
Yeah.
We also had the advantage of being the luxury of creating a government from scratch. Canada was a dominion of was part of the British Empire for forever. It's not practical. It wouldn't be practical to go, let's go with a new government system. And remember, we had tried one before, the Confederation, that was unacceptable. I think it was a unicameral system. I think it was unicameral with each state just getting a vote or something. I don't know, but it was very weak central government and just wasn't very effective. So that's another thing. Does Canada have a strong federalism tradition?
Yeah, actually, Canada was founded and intended to have strong federalist powers and low provincial powers. Very, actually, in big contrast to the United States, where it was the states that started with all the power. Now we've seen that federal intrusion on state powers for a few decades now. It's been the trend that the federal government intrudes on states' rights each and every day with each and every Supreme Court decision, whereas Canada seems to be going the other way. The provinces are demanding more autonomy. So it's very interesting from a, if you're a political science nerd or something and this stuff kind of interests you, it is fun to watch how these countries change over time. Yeah.
Well, and so my background, Tim, I was history. I was going to be a history professor until it became obvious that my right-wing political leanings would not get me hired anywhere in the world. Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
On our end? Yeah. No, you're fine, Ty.
Yeah, you don't want me touching. You don't want me touching the microphone. I guess I can lean forward.
Yeah, there we go.
Is that? Yeah. Okay. All right. Excuse me. I'm before I break my neck here. Sorry. All right. I'll just sit like a
real professional.
Yeah. Well, let's don't get carried away. But I'm a history, both academically and with interest, and people need to understand that the people from 200 years ago were just as smart as we are. If actually they were a lot smarter, to be quite honest. But it's that way.
Yeah, right. Let's see him explain how a 3090 works.
Fair enough. Or the interwebs.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm tired of hearing about these. I'm tired about hearing about how these old idiots were smarter than all of us. Yeah, sure.
I can imagine our founders looking at social media going, that looks like a colossal waste of time. How does that put money in your pocket?
If you put a canned good in their hand, they wouldn't be able to open it. these guys were not smart.
Yeah,
Stop it.
Right.
Stop
They
it.
probably could have just stuck their finger right through the can.
Can I offer the stream? I'm noticing the stream has now decided that for some reason I've decided to accept the end of the universe. Guys, this is not the end of the world. Okay, let's leave the hysterical, overwrought overreaction to the other side. It would have been pretty damn close to the end of the world if Biden had rolled up the Congress, but we're going to keep the Senate.
Yeah, let's talk about the Senate.
Yeah, it's going to. I mean, presumably, I mean the consensus seems to be we're going to keep the Senate. Wall Street thinks we are because they had a rally day. We keep the Senate. All the crazy shit that Biden wants to do doesn't get done. I mean, no pack in the court, no Green New Deal. What are some of the other stupid things? No federal gun control. No, I mean, okay, he'll run foreign policy and make a complete clusterfuck of it. But there's no existential threats to the United States.
Joe's good at foreign policy. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's been milking money out of the Ukraine for quite a while.
Hunter's on the case, everyone.
Yeah, he's got. Look, I would rather have Trump as president. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, don't give up hope, because right now our worst case scenario is a hell of a lot better than it was yesterday morning. Because
100%.
Yeah, had it been a wave election, like I assumed it would be anyway, I think, it would be bad. But no, what we're going to see is 2 years of gridlock, and gridlock is a feature of our system, not a bug. And executive orders, yes, I know the president can issue executive orders. Guess what? That's to executive agencies telling them to do stuff. Big freaking deal. You're not going to get gun control through that. You're not going to get the Green New Deal. You're not going to end fracking. All the stuff we're actually scared of requires Congress.
Yeah, and so, if he does try to executive order that, there's a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court now that's going to say no.
It's my time. It's my time. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yeah.
You don't have the votes. You don't have the votes. You're gonna need congressional approval, and you don't have the votes.
And the war is not over.
No.
For God's sakes.
I think a lot of people, they got the brouhaha from typing on a keyboard. But
like I said, I'd like the hysterical overreaction to be a quality of the other side. I also don't really like it when our side says, "Oh, we had some adversity. I guess it's over." Really? I thought we were the ones that, no, it's not over. And by the way, I think the Democrats should have watched Star Wars, because, if you strike Trump down.
Oh God! Stop that immediately.
Yeah, I'm demonetized.
This is the cringe alert. Stop. No.
Okay, hang on. Hear me out.
I'm building up barriers to Star Trek references to Trump, or Star Wars references to Trump.
Oh, no, that's
I'm
all
shutting it down.
That's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to do.
This is a Detroit recount center, and it is being shut down immediately.
Ty, if you go into Star Wars, I'm going to go back into French. I'll do it.
No. I'm sorry. I obviously transgressed an unknown norm. My bad. Point being, what do you think a high-powered, egomaniacal, media-savvy, multi-billionaire is going to do if he thinks someone cheated him out of the presidency?
Oh, he's going to fight it in every way he can.
But after it's over with, I'm kind of seeing maybe a Trump media company designed solely to go after the left.
Oh, probably.
Yeah,
mainly because he knows it would make $1 billion in a heartbeat.
Of course it would. And he'll do it right. And oh, by the way, his kids aren't going to become liberals like Rupert Murdoch's kids did.
That's what's interesting. You know, someone actually did this. Do you remember? He's a little guy, and his little company was just majorly in the news over the 2-week run up to the election. His name was Alexander Hamilton, who started the New York Post after being ousted from any political chances of winning the presidency. He then made the New York Post and was critical of his own party member, John Adams, specifically, and basically killed his presidency. Those are the classic frenemies, though. If Trump were a new Hamilton, that would be pretty impressive. But if he created a Trump media empire akin to a 1800s New York Post. That'd be pretty neat.
Yeah, I think I really think that this thing is a long way from over. I think what Nick was trying to do at the beginning of the stream, I'll presume to talk for you, is don't get your hopes up for any kind of fast resolution. And look, Donald Trump loves to fight. He lives to fight. He's very, very good at it. And he's known this fight is coming. So, at some level, I'm kind of willing to just kind of trust his judgment on this.
My whole thing is simple. Do you remember the "Here's how Bernie can still win" meme? Like, if we sit around and go, "Here's how Trump can still win," and it's these like long, crazy theories. Like, right now, there are two plausible paths to victory.
Yeah.
One is recounting in close states with heavy mail-in ballots and saying the standard discrepancy rate for mail-in ballots was not followed, and these mail-in ballots skewed heavily towards Joe Biden. Now, let's say you go to Wisconsin, you hit the mail-in numbers, and you eliminate 10 to 15% of those mail-in or absentee votes. If you do that and it flips Wisconsin, Trump very possibly wins. Same thing in Michigan. Same thing in if he ends up losing Pennsylvania or Georgia, you've got the same thing. There are real avenues there. Yeah, the other real avenue is that he just wins 4 states that are out there for grabs right now. He wins those 2. But if we start getting into this again, yes, dead people voted. Dead people vote in every election. It's a big problem.
We really ought to make it illegal for dead people to vote.
We should. I think, it's a big problem. It really is. And yes, voter fraud is a big problem. They need to be solved. They won't resolve this election is the problem. So like Project Veritas's video, very compelling, very intriguing, deserves a lot of inquiry, but there isn't really a mechanism to go in and undo the potential damage that's been done other than the ones we're talking about, recounting being the primary.
It's a distraction for us right now. At the end of the day, Trump lost those states because an insane number of mail-in ballots came in Biden's favor. So obviously you attack those ballots. And by the way, Nick and I did not compare strategy notes, but we both independently derived the same exact perspective on this. And I think that, I think Trump's got a decent shot because I think that, 1 in 1,000 you return. Oh, by the way, so on that 1,500, whatever the exact number was, 900 of them were mailed back to the voter to be resubmitted. So, which I assume that's okay, but I'm just saying, there's, I think he's got a real chance with that angle. I really do.
Yeah. Do we have any updates from the coming out of Fulton County or out of Nevada or Arizona?
Fulton County, I think, just had an update. $1,400,000. Yeah, there was a small update. So by the looks of it, what is Trump's lead? Trump's lead in Georgia is now, let's call that 120,000 votes.
So he increased his lead, I believe.
If I'm doing that math correctly, it's a little hard to see that number this far away.
It's because his lead was 90,000, if I remember right. Do you have
no. Whoa, hang on. That was whoopsies. That was a whoops. I was looking at the Senate race.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that'll
guys, 20 shots, all right? Give me a break. Let's see. Fulton County. I haven't seen that update come in yet.
I mean, what's it at? What's the difference at right now? People are saying 25 to 30,000 right now.
So for Georgia, it is 27,000 is the difference.
Okay. Gotcha. So that's the update everybody sees. We'll keep watching as we go. I do have some chats to cover, and then we should talk about. I guess we should talk about what maybe some of these challenges look like and what the recount process does maybe we could get into numbers on looking at recounts in these states. Ty, you said there are a couple automatic recounts. Do you know which states those are off the top of your head?
Yes, it's going to be Wisconsin, and depending on the numbers, it would probably be Pennsylvania. If my projections are right, it'll be Pennsylvania because the difference is within the 1% thing. Michigan, they magically found enough extra votes later on to move Michigan out of the automatic recount area. So,
yeah, and again, the discrepancy people are seeing in Michigan, in case you weren't here for the earlier part of the stream, is I know if you go to the Michigan Secretary of State website, you're going to see a different thing. You're going to see Trump winning by about 100 and whatever thousand votes. That's not counting Detroit. Detroit is not included in the number on the Secretary of State website. It is included in the parts that are done on every, on the news sources websites. And that's based on how Michigan records its votes on its government page. So they're all unofficial results. None of them are certified by the Secretary of State yet. Even the ones on their own website aren't certified, but they don't post them until the county's completely done. Detroit isn't done counting. And so they should be, but they're not because of whatever reason. And again, if you're looking for Trump to be saved by extra counting in Michigan, the maxim I go by is if the Democrat is losing, just keep counting ballots in Detroit.
Yeah.
I guarantee you the Democrat will win. That's just how it's going to go.
So Nevada is not going to release anything until noon Eastern tomorrow. This is according to the latest from the Washington Post.
Oh, thank you, Nevada. Thank you, Nevada, for being unable to count like your 25,000 votes. Or
it's going to be interesting. Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear Razor Fist.
Yeah. I sent Razor an invite. I don't think he'll be popping on to the stream, but I did drop him a link in case he has time and sees it and all that stuff. But I didn't get a chance to talk to him about it. So I just said, hey man, if you've got some insight, please pop on. But no promises.
I don't know in Michigan. I don't know about Michigan election law. There may be some mechanism to, basically sue Michigan for a recount.
Well, and what Trump is doing, Trump actually is suing in Michigan to stop the vote tallying. Like that's what he sued for at this morning.
Well, he's gotten tired of them counting, and recounting
votes in Detroit. And the interesting question would be, is there some segregation of votes? Is there some way where they can stop the tally? And what place does that stop? Where does that stop? And these are really hard questions to answer. And I don't know that it's going to be it's not a simple sort of solution.
Well, and I assume, you would think, there I go again. You would think, wouldn't you, that they're required to keep the ballots and to keep, basic record keeping? That would be an interesting occurrence if all of a sudden a couple 100,000 Biden ballots were accidentally destroyed. By the way, I've got a great conspiracy theory. I have no idea if it, but it sounded good anyway. I'd like to run by you guys and see what you think. It's so here's my theory. My theory is my theory is there is fraud in Michigan. We'll use Michigan as an example.
Right.
There's fraud in Michigan. Okay. The original intention was to have no fraud unless you needed it, and to use it only to the degree that you needed it to just get the vote. Trump, we commented last night on the fact that Trump appeared to be way ahead in these states compared to 2016. So they look up in Michigan and go, oh shit, Trump's about to carry the state away. They panic and they just throw they grab all their ballots and throw it in there. And it's more of a desperation move than anything. What do you think?
Two conspiracy theories.
Let me hold on. Let me get my drink going. Then I'll cheers it with you. I think what you're saying is they don't use the discernment that they would normally use on a mail-in ballot, right?
Right. But this was just oh shit.
By the way, Ty, I just got a text from a friend of mine who asked, "Is that Alex Jones on the stream?" So thank you for launching immediately into a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I'm not sure who he insulted, but anyway.
Ty, do you have any?
I don't believe it. I just came up with it. It sounded good.
Do you have any super male vitality pills to sell, or colloidal silver, or anything that'll turn the frogs freaking straight?
Well,
All I gotta
obviously
do
they're
is
putting
take
frogs
the-
in the water to turn to chemicals. That's the new thing now.
All you got to do is go wherever I donate blood, and that'll be all the.
We've got some chats here. So Marty Lund says, "Did Tim get that Lagavulin for when Katie Hobbs finally lets them finish counting those last 450,000 votes in Arizona? 75,000 counted today. All Maricopa erased 19,000 from Biden. Now down to a 70K lead. Math says Trump." And this is I do want to talk Arizona, because this is a place where it's only been called on Fox News and Politico. No other major news source has called Arizona. I believe there was one, not ABC. Everybody's saying
AP.
Yeah, the Associated Press, wherever they got their data from, they called Arizona as well. They have retracted it.
That's right.
People are saying ABC News retracted it. That's not true. Apparently, they never called it. So here's the thing with Arizona. I did the math on this earlier, and I'll walk through it right now because it seems.
Let me get my abacus out.
It seems pertinent. I used a calculator this time, so it's relatively correct. I'll use estimated numbers. But Biden is up 1,444,213 votes to 1,365,040 votes. There are 14 percentage points of votes that are uncounted. So there's 86% of the votes in. If Donald Trump, on average, picks up 5,700 votes per remaining percentage point net, he overcomes Joe Biden in Arizona. This is consistent with what I was saying and where the math was trending last night. And that puts him within what I'll say 0.2 of a percentage point in either direction. So Arizona is still in play. The Politico map doesn't have it there, but by the numbers, Razorfist was saying this as well. There are a lot of ballots left. The Arizona GOP tweeted out today that there are 600,000 ballots remaining to count in Arizona. Right now, Trump is down less than 80,000 ballots, making up 80,000 votes in a 600,000 total. Just means that it has to trend towards Trump about 56% or 57% of the time. If he gets 60%, if he gets 60-40 on the votes, he overcomes it. If he gets 65-35, he wins dramatically.
Now, the internal numbers for the Trump campaign have him going 60-40 for the remaining votes to count in Arizona. Now, internal numbers, the ones they release to the public, are usually skewed to present your candidate in the best light. These ones, on the other hand, though, the internal numbers that are truly internal, the ones that are, the person who does my job,
the somber guy in the room who says, "Sir, here's what we're looking at."
I've had to deliver that news before.
Right,
sir, we're not going to win here, and I've won an election in a 38,000 voter riding by 92 votes. And let me tell you that I was the second most stressed person that night. The other being obviously the candidate. But and that's where I have a pile of papers in my hands and I say, I don't know. Right. I really don't know if you're going to win.
So the basic theme here is, if Trump trends in Arizona the way he's been trending, and if Maricopa County makes up the minority of remaining votes, which it looks like it does, it's very possible that Trump actually does flip Arizona. I'm not saying it's likely, because it will likely be really close, maybe in mandatory recount territory even, and that is a big question. But we can't rule out Arizona as a legitimate possible state for him to win. Unfortunately, we're probably not going to see those numbers. I hear they have stopped counting in Arizona for the night due to riots or something.
I hate to harsh your mellow, Nick. Check my numbers, okay, and I based them off of your calculations. You said that Trump has 1.444 million and some change. Biden's got
yeah.
Biden, excuse me. Trump's got 1.365 million and some change.
Yeah.
That's 2.8 million roughly votes. And that's 86% of the vote, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you divide the 2.8 million by 86% and you get 3.266. That's the total number of votes that are theoretically out there. You subtract from the 3.2 the 2.8 that's out that has already been counted, leaving 457,320 votes.
Yeah.
60% of those that are going to go to Trump is 274,392. 40% is 182,928. The difference is 91,464. That is 11,000 and some change over what's necessary for Trump to turn it. So while it's possible, it's
although the
it's
11%, the 11,000 margin will trigger automatic recount. I believe it's 1%.
sure.
The other thing to factor in there is the number you use is 450,000. That's because the 86% is of the expected votes that are in.
Right. There could, and they
again,
could be all,
the GOP said earlier there's 600,000 ballots outstanding. I don't know
so
what the actual number
I think
is.
they've underestimated the total. Then is that?
That's what the allegation would be. Is that the GOP's overestimating the amount of remaining ballots? I don't know what the answer is.
Well, if the GOP's right, then yeah, it now becomes it's nowhere near as thin. Here's the thing about recounts, though, and again, Tim, you got more experience with this than I do. Recounts are actually they don't usually actually change the result, right? I mean,
oh man, very very rarely. And
right.
Look, you trigger automatic recount when you won by 7 votes. Right, that's a judicial recount. That means that all the ballots got to go before a judge. When you challenge a vote, the judge determines whether or not to count it, and that's final. There's nothing left for you to. There's no recourse available for you after that.
Yeah, and see what's different about these recounts is they're not just recounts; they are validations.
Right,
and you've got a gigantic population compared to the past. That's why I wanted to reach out and slap Scott Walker upside the head when he started saying, well, recounts don't usually work. No, Scott, these are not your recounts. These are recounts where literally half the votes cast were mailed in with not much to validate them. A little different story, I think.
Yeah, that's the challenge of this election, and what makes the potential for a recount very different and intriguing is that in a normal election, you go in, you sign your little your ballot card, or you don't sign it, you fill in the numbers, and then you go and you put it in the machine, and that's the majority of votes. Here we have a huge number, a much bigger than ever number of mailed in or absentee ballots, which have a higher fail rate overall. Now, it doesn't mean that they'll have a higher fail rate this election. That's the other thing to consider. With the heavy focus on mail-in ballots, it's quite possible that more sophisticated users of mail-in ballots are present. It's also possible that new users to mail-in ballots are less sophisticated. There's no way to know at this point what that will be. But,
well, as Tim pointed out, education of the electorate matters. The ability to follow written directions.
Right.
I mean, it does.
But it changes the recount, and it adds a cloud of variability both ways, in both directions, and it expands the margin of error for any sort of estimations on what happens, because we have unpredicted. We don't have, we'll say, actuarial data on how these things play out, like we would in any other election. You would have a predictive model.
And these Republicans who are running around saying the recounts aren't going to work, shut up! You don't know what you're talking about. We've never done these kinds of recounts, so stop talking. Look. I mean, we have courts for a reason. We have a legal system for a reason. Mostly it's to give me and Nick money, but
then Nick all the money.
Oh,
Yes.
I did get that most delightful moment today though when some little turd comes in. Hey, 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 hey. I went, you do know that I'm a lawyer. I'm gonna be fine. That the Democrats are gonna. I probably will make more money under a Biden administration than I would make under a Trump. I said, now you not so much, but since you voted for the guy, that seems only fair. Man, that pisses them off when I do that.
So I'm starting to see some numbers trickle in from Fulton County. It's only a couple hundred votes at a time. So there's not really much to report on, but yes, they're reporting they're starting to push some Fulton County votes in.
Yeah.
Again, a couple hundred votes did move the needle one bit.
Right. Right.
Well, I mean, if we're down to fighting in Georgia, I do think it's over for Trump. You get too many of these battles that you've got to win the whole thing. You wind up in a bridge too far kind of scenario.
Yeah, and that's why. The important thing to remember is Gore was the challenger in 2004. He was the one asking for the recounts. He was closing the gap, but he had one battle to win, and that was Florida. He wasn't trying to win any other battles, and it came kind of close.
So let's talk about that.
Well, real quick, just finishing the point. If you start talking about having to win in state, not federal courts, because you're not necessarily going to be fighting these things in federal courts. I know there's a big hubbub about court appointments of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. It's not guaranteed that this is going to a Supreme Court challenge. It's very, very possible they will stay within the states themselves. Having to win in multiple states, every state you add exponentially decreases the odds of winning if you have to actually fight out a court battle. Because one bad decision in one hearing in one of those battles loses you the case.
Well, Nick, you would have good experience with that. You lose the case all the time.
I have a grand habit of it.
It's hard. Dog, yeah, it's lockbox. So
put it in a
if you remember Gore versus Bush, it was an equal protection deal. They said, no, you're counting the ballots differently one county to the next, and therefore it's an equal protection violation. Ironic, really, considering you could actually make the same argument about counting ballots differently from state to state. But anyway, you see any equal protection angles on this, Dick?
I'm not familiar enough with how they're doing the counting. It depends on. It's hard to separate reportings on shenanigans. Like, this is going to sound terrible, and forgive me, but like, it's possible that one source is good reporting and 7 sources are really bad. And that's kind of the problem with Twitter. So it's like, okay, well, which one do you go after? Which one is verifiable? Which one is falsifiable? That's another problem with any of these things. Is there falsifiability to the hypothesis that fraud occurred? What's the falsifiability is, can you show it at all, or can you show a meaningful opposite result based on the information you have? If you can show falsifiability of a thing, then you can argue for that it's invalid. If you can't show that it's falsifiable, like if you say, well, this fraud occurred down the chain weeks ago, and now we have no way to track where that fraud ended up, I mean, it's not helpful. And you can't
make the burden of proof. I mean, somebody's got to have the burden to prove to the court what happened.
Yep.
Or didn't.
Well, and you've talked about this, Nick, many times when it comes to lawsuits. The remedy, the lawsuit will only work if there's something the court can remedy.
Right. And
which 9 times out of 10 is just money. Right.
Yes. 9 times out of 10 is money.
In terms of it. Yeah.
What was that, Ty?
I was saying the civil courts, that's the remedy that they have is money, pretty much.
Right.
I mean,
the other is performance. A performance remedy where they have to, or injunctive relief where they stop something from happening, they command something that's supposed to happen, and that's how it goes. But I want to point out, because I see a lot of people in chat bringing up the 118-year-old person who died in the 1980s who voted in the election. That's great. Where's his ballot? this is
That's
the problem that you have going to court. It's like, okay, we can show that this guy voted. You can't show how he voted. You don't know where his specific ballot is. How do you invalidate it? And that's yeah.
It's
That's
one vote.
well, to be fair, that is one vote. However, there's a shot I saw on Twitter, allegedly from an election worker, a poll watcher, where they had a screenshot of people who are registered voters born in 1900 who had voted in the election. There's probably 12 of them or something on the screen. Who knows how many? Who knows if there's 1901s, 1905s? Don't know. There could be a bunch of votes.
Yeah.
Where's their ballot? Who was it for? How do you invalidate it? We can make inferences, but you can't bring it into court on an inference, and you can't say this should be different, because how do you erase that vote?
Yeah, and criminal law is always reactive. Or criminal law is not proactive; it's reactive. So yeah, you bring the fraudster to criminal court, charge them, do whatever, throw the book at them. What's the remedy from the civil side?
Yeah, and that's the problem that they face. So that's why when we were talking earlier in the show, why we're saying don't get. Yes, it's important that there's voter fraud. You won't find too many people other than me who says voter fraud's a really important issue. I believe voter fraud happens constantly. I don't believe the news, and I can tell you 150,000 reasons why voter fraud is so hard to prosecute in this country, and why anyone who says, well, there were only 2 convictions in the past X amount of years, why that's bogus. It has no bearing on whether or not there is voter fraud. There is absolutely voter fraud. Elections are too important for there not to be, and the numbers are too big for there not to be, just by statistics. That being said, what voter fraud can you fix is a different question. Fix for this election.
And remember, we have limited time.
Yep.
Right.
We have until December under the Constitution.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a huge deal, guys. We don't have 2 years to run this down. You know, Trump is going to do exactly what he ought to do, and that's focus on how to win. And in my opinion, the way he wins is exactly like we've laid out. And I don't know. You know, it's the state courts. I'm skeptical that state courts are going to stick their neck out into this. I think it's going to wind up at the U.S. Supreme Court with some sort of version of the argument that, look, they're not applying their own laws, and that's, you know, and that's and I haven't, I haven't had a chance to work through my constitutional theory on that, but Trump obviously believes that he's got an option. You know, I mean, last night I thought, actually, I now think it was kind of brilliant of him to come out with that speech last night. It made, when it happened, it was like, oh yeah, okay, he said it was going to happen. You know, so I mean, what do y'all think about the speech he made?
I loved his speech. Actually, that speech was the highlight of my night, and not even the content of it. Just Trump is a quintessentially gifted salesman.
Yes.
And his speech, like they should teach what he did on the podium last night in every communications class forever. Because the way he communicated was so relatable, honest. It was softly done. I don't think it was coached or rehearsed either. It was very natural, and it's just how he does it, because he's been doing it so well for so long that he did it great. I loved watching that speech from that perspective. I think it is. We all laughed and kind of cheered. He's declaring war ahead of time, and it was good that they got out ahead of it. What we should have probably picked up on last night was that some guy like Tim told Trump what was happening behind the scenes, and Trump was mitigating the damage that was about to come. I would wager they knew there was 120,000 votes coming in for Biden within an hour or two after that speech.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that poor guy who has to go to Donald Trump, right, and say, "I've got bad news for you, sir."
Right.
about this victory.
Yeah. And but I do think it set the tone very well for what he intends to do. He didn't wait until he was behind. That would have looked way worse. And it was a good call. It was a good call to do it that way. And he let his supporters know that they were going to fight. What I don't like is that I got a text today that said, if every true patriot just gives $35, Republicans win. And I was like, stop it. Stop trying to take my money.
Well, it has to offend you on a professional level. I mean, you are a professional grifter. That's just amateurish.
Yeah,
and,
that's
and,
ridiculous.
And political emails, I've written a few of them. When you get someone riled up like that, they will open up the wallet. It works. That's why they keep doing it.
It does, but I just hate that I can't turn them off. I just want them to stop texting me.
I thought you would reply stop.
I want to say to the chat this. Look, it's been a long day and I'm tired, and I get kind of bitchy whenever I get tired. I'm not lecturing you guys, and I'm not trying to, sneer at you. I know you're pissed. I'm not happy about this either. What we're trying to do is say a lot of these rabbit trails just aren't constructive. At the end of the day, Donald Trump is a fighter. He knows how to fight. He loves to fight. And he's not going to go quietly into the dark night. He's not going to go, I've decided it's best for the country. Or you do it better than I do, Nick. You see Trump coming out. He's going to fight this thing with nuclear weapons. And the great thing is, I don't see any downside for us in letting him do it.
I think there's a minor chance that he does quit. And that's if he gets rolled in Virginia, if he gets rolled in Georgia, rolled in Nevada, rolled in Arizona, and rolled in Pennsylvania, and he goes, I'm not going to fight this thing on 4 or 5 different states. But they've already
as it stands now. What do you think?
They've already allegedly filed in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I mean, I think they've got Wisconsin too. They filed They probably did. I don't have that.
Well,
I was trying to find the
challenges. Those challenges have to be made within 1 day of the What does canvassing mean, Tim?
Canvassing? Oh, canvassing is how you identify who's voting for you. So, the most common way to do that is just voter outreach. You call them, you text them, you knock on their door, and you say, "How are you voting? Will you support us?"
How does that work? Go ahead.
Well, it always relies on that voluntary, right? Because, I mean, you have the right to keep your ballot secret, but you also have the right to waive that right. You have, and then I, as the pollster, can say, "Well, I have the right to ask." You are not forced to answer, but I definitely can ask. And a lot of people will tell you who they're going to vote for. Most of them truthfully. But yeah, canvassing is getting those numbers together so that you can, that's how someone like me determines if you're going to win or not. That's where those internal numbers come from. It's that canvassing.
Well, that's canvassing, but I don't think that's the legal definition you're looking for.
No, because they said that you had to demand the recount within 1 day of canvassing. So it must have a separate meaning.
I think
that's not a meaning I'm familiar with.
It's probably a statutorily defined meaning. Someone was saying, Little B says canvassing means inspection at the county. So maybe it's 1 day of the votes being certified at the county level, or by the Secretary of State's office. I don't know. I'm speculating that you have to have reasonable certainty that you have official results that you can challenge, because I can't challenge a
percentage.
You can't go into court and challenge an estimate, but if they're filing for a recount or whatever, they'd have to have a count to file a recount. I think that would be a reasonable expectation of the court. Is you have to have a count before you can ask for a remedy to find out that the count was wrong. So that it's probably something to do with that. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah,
by the way, I'm not doing shots for the 1,000 likes.
No.
No.
Tim may still be intoxicated from yesterday.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry I had to bail on y'all. I wussed out. Guys, when it comes to not worrying about this stuff, I want to point something out. A long time ago, Sugar Ray Leonard comes out of retirement to fight Marvin Hagler, and at that time, Marvin Hagler was just the toughest middleweight on the planet. Leonard was incredibly quick and light and all this kind of stuff, but he hadn't boxed in a long time. And I was I wanted Leonard to win. Fight starts, great fight. Leonard comes out and just dances all around Hagler, and he's bopping him. Of course, Hagler is trying to cut the ring off and get Leonard into a corner where he'll pulverize him. Hagler tries, Leonard slips him. This goes on, and of course, every time Hagler tries this, I'm tensing up, going, "Get out of there!" And finally, I don't know, about the 6th or 7th round, a buddy of mine turned to me and said, "Don't you think he knows what he's doing? Hasn't he kind of demonstrated that enough that you can shut up?" And I went, "Oh, well, yeah." I propose that we do that with Trump. Trump knows what he's doing. He knows what he's got to do. He's a businessman, which means he hires lawyers who are actually good, not lawyers that went to the right law school. So I don't have any reason to think Trump can't pull this off if it can be pulled off.
So, and we hit on this earlier. Quickly, just for the chat's sake and for the viewers, we talked about the Senate briefly. We know that the Senate's probably coming back to us. The Democrats just completely shat the bed on that one. So I just wanted to quickly look at the races, give the results, give my thoughts on them, and then we can move on from that, not spend a lot of time on it. Georgia looks like Purdue's going to take that one. Purdue's up big time over Ossoff. And there's just not enough votes out there remaining for the catch-up. It'd have to break, I think, 87% for Ossoff to close that gap. That's not happening. Same with Tillis in North Carolina, up big time. There's 7% left of the vote to count. Again, it needs to break into the high 70s, low 80s to make the gap up. Not happening. For anyone who cares, Collins was reelected. Gideon conceded that. We're probably going to pick up retain the Senate seat in Alaska. Georgia's got a special Senate race too, so they had a lot of people run. Yes, the Democrat got the plurality of votes more than anyone else, but they didn't get 50%. There's going to be a runoff between that and the person who finished in second place, and the total of the Republican votes will easily be more than the total of the Democrat votes. Once that goes to runoff, I think that seat's fine. That'll give us a 52 seat Senate. So, Ty, your reaction to a 52 seat Senate in a Biden presidency, if that's what happens?
Oh, I'm fine with it.
Stop being fine with it. It's the funniest possible thing that can happen. Let me tell you why. Let me educate you on why. First of all, Republicans, if Trump loses, Biden wins 52 seats. Trump spends the next 2 months filling the courts with nothing but Republican and conservative judges down the line, which means not only will he possibly flip appellate or district courts red or conservative or originalist, however you want to look at it, he will set up the next crop of Supreme Court candidates and appellate court candidates for the next Republican president to go off of. With a 52 senator majority hostile to a Biden presidency, if McConnell can keep his amphibious spine, let's assume a Supreme Court justice dies next year and it's a conservative. The Republicans in Congress can literally say no for 3.5 years if they want. And there's no amount of bitching that can fix it. There's nothing. If they just choose not to do it, and they'll be able to stack the Senate Judiciary Committee with a Republican majority, and every candidate that Biden would appoint will not get out of committee. If the Republicans, and that will be a big negotiating basket that they have. And it's all because Harry Reid killed the nuclear option. He killed the filibuster. He implemented the nuclear option and killed the filibuster. And the Republicans can use that to their advantage for at minimum the next 2 years, likely the next 4 years. And it's possible that they would hold out on major positions in and they would have it on everything. On literally everything. All they have to do is stay strong, which means they would have a bargaining card on every single major appointment, including FBI, any major officer of the U.S. government. And
Yeah.
I know it's asking a lot for Republicans to have a spine, but they actually did it twice in the past 4 years, which is really impressive.
Well, and they did it recently with Barrett.
Right. And the first one, of course, is Merrick Garland, right at the end of Obama's administration. The Republicans can hold any of those things out as long as they choose and as long as they hold the majority in the Senate. So it's actually a pretty big deal to have a split government, and that's not the worst thing in the world.
Now,
Agreed.
talking about split government, let's look at the House. I know a lot of people have been chomping at the bit for that.
Yes.
So, Ty, what was your reaction when they, I think within 20 minutes of the polls closing, everyone said, oh, the Dems keep the House?
I thought it was bullshit.
Well,
I mean, no, I didn't. It's not that I didn't think the Democrats. I figured it was very likely they would, but but from what I understand, I don't want to steal your thunder. Why don't you go forward? Because I think I know what you're going to say.
They weren't just supposed to keep the House. They were supposed to dramatically keep the House by something like, they're talking about expanding their lead to 21 or 30 seats or something.
Yeah. Guess what they're going to get knocked down to in all likelihood? A 3-seat House majority.
And that means Nancy Pelosi's crash test dummies are wiped out. The crash test dummies, I think I told you last night, they're those lying quasi, supposedly conservative Democrats that they were successful implanting in 2018. They did that in 2008. That's one of the reasons they were able to get Obamacare passed, and that class got wiped out to a person. So, yeah.
And if a bad case of the coof goes around Congress, in those Democrat seats, you could lose a few of those votes.
And there's been some talk. I don't want to put too much into this because I do think Nancy Pelosi, while she looks like Skeletor, is still a somewhat effective leader. There's been some talk that what I heard was, moderate members of the Democrat House are wanting to get rid of Pelosi, and I'm going, there are no moderate members of the Democrat House. What are you talking about? So. Do the young people use this as an opportunity to overthrow Pelosi and any of the other old fogies?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I do want to say we just
funny.
lost a moderate member of the House. We did. The pro-life, pro-gun Democrat Colin Peterson from my district overturned, 26-year incumbent and chair of the House Agriculture Committee. Huge power seat gone. Just obliterated.
Lost, is that federal? I mean, the U.S. House of Representatives.
Yep, U.S.
Was he beaten by a Republican?
Yep, Michelle Fischbach.
Ooh, that's
Fishbach.
bad.
Fishbach, whatever.
Yeah,
her name is.
Fishbach. Now, and I said this last night, if you're going to run in Minnesota with the name Fishbach, you should win every time.
Okay. Yeah, it's like Spanish surname down in the valley. That's the thing about this election, and I don't, look, I'm not trying to make, hide the fact that our president got hammered, and if he loses, it's going to be a pretty bad turnback for us. There was no blue wave last night.
No, I actually minorly disagree. I don't disagree that there was no blue wave. No, I don't disagree with that. I disagree with the turnback statement. Here's what I genuinely believe. If the next Republican candidate in 2024 can take notes on two things: how Trump connected with middle-class, blue-collar workers and minorities, and the other thing they need to take notice of is where Trump disconnected with base Republicans. If they can tweak those, if they can keep what Trump did well and get rid of the brashness, I guess, or those weird sticking points where people go, well, he's rude. I agree that I don't give a shit that he's rude personally. I'm rude, so it doesn't really bother me that much, but I know it does bother some people. If they do that, there is no blue wave, and I think that's very important to know, that the next Republican candidate does have a map and a big sign that says, you just do the right thing, and we're still all here. I mean, we're still all here, and because I think Democrats are likely to be depressed voters 4 years from now. Then there's no way they're going to repeat the numbers of this year without a Trump-like character to fight against. They're just not.
I don't disagree with any of that, Nick. What I was saying is I'm not offering this up to hide the fact that if Trump loses, it's going to be it's a defeat. But the pollsters, did they not beclown themselves, by the way?
Oh no,
yeah.
they have pies all over their faces.
They're garbage.
Yeah, well, we knew that, but I mean, now hopefully everybody else knows. And there was no blue wave. But so now we get back to this little thing, right, of trying to make some kind of sense out of this election. There was no blue wave, yet an incumbent president gets defeated in states that he carried before at a time, when he's got all these huge rallies of people what I'm saying is those are the kinds of sideways kind of background facts that make me say, I think it's more likely than I normally would think that that fraud is the reason these states have been carried by Biden. I don't want anybody for a moment to think that I'm saying there was no fraud. If I was a betting man, hell yeah, I'd bet on fraud.
There's something else too. There's another angle to that, Ty. A lot of people have been looking at the turnout, especially in Wisconsin. I think I saw the number 89% thrown around.
And I say it's an impossible number. You say it's possible.
It is possible. A number over 90, I would say, is impossible, but you could have the best turnout day of your life and get 89%. But I mean, that's just pure speculation. What I did want to highlight is the enthusiasm to vote for Hillary Clinton was not there. The Democrats had a turnout problem. Trump didn't just straight up beat them in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. The Democrats in places like Detroit, in places like Philly and Pittsburgh, they had turnout problems. A lot of people were not coming out to vote for Hillary.
Right.
So it's like I said, you build up that lead in the urban core, and then you cross your fingers and hope that it doesn't fall when the rule vote is counted. Hillary crossed her fingers and it had no effect because she didn't build the big enough lead from the urban centers. They had such turnout problems. The change in the turnout more than makes up for the margin that Trump won those states by.
We have a definition problem, I think. When I say fraud, I include not rejecting ballots that should have been rejected. I consider that a form of fraud. That to me, and I think that's the most likely answer here is that
it's also the possible path to victory on a recount or on a challenge is to say, look, these should have been excluded for various reasons.
You don't get to rehabilitate them after the fact. I mean, that's and I get back to this with the U.S. Supreme Court. I think the U.S. Supreme Court might find that it could intervene if the state Supreme Courts just said, no, it's okay. You can just change the law. Because that is an equal protection violation, right? I mean,
if the state says it's okay and it runs afoul of a federal constitutional question, then if they say no, we have a Fifth Amendment due process right to this thing, and a 14th Amendment equal protection clause, and we didn't get it at the state level, they can go to the Supreme Court for the remedy. I don't want people to get hung up on the idea that this is going to go directly to Amy Coney Barrett's desk and she's going to stamp it, which is what the Democrats were implying. It's got several steps to get to the federal courts in the first place. I do think if it goes from the state level, that it goes very quickly to the Supreme Court. Because again, this has to be done constitutionally by December. There's 35 days or something until the electors cast their votes.
But remember, the president specifically said, we're going to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, they just haven't filed there yet. They've filed in state court. So,
there's probably procedural,
right. I'm just pointing, and that's what I'm saying. I'm pointing out the procedure for why they're not starting at the Supreme Court.
I'm gonna be real interested to read the pleadings on that stuff. I mean,
The only
the,
pleading I've been able to find so far is the Michigan one, and it's just a motion for the Trump campaign to act as intervener in one of the existing suits there. It doesn't actually lay out the argument
Right.
for
Right.
for victory. It's just asking for them to be intervener. So
Oh,
we'll see.
by the way, did you guys see they were protesting and rioting in Denver? I don't know if the rioting is as accurate or not, but they're protesting in Denver that Trump's contesting these elections. Now, seriously, that is trolling at an astronomical level, isn't it?
Wait, what are they?
Go tear up a blue city because Trump is going to challenge the.
There you go. Yeah, that makes sense. Go
Yeah,
loot a Target in a sharper image or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. But before we got on the show, Brianna's young man was showing me. He said, "Yeah, look at they're right." I said, "Oh, that's glorious." Um, you know, this is the other thing too about this. I personally hope that they do turn over a bunch of fraud, not just because I want Trump to win. I don't like half the votes being mailed in with no accountability.
I
That
don't
is
want any
so.
votes mailed in. I'm a dick.
I don't either. I mean, honestly, but my point is that I want this exposed as the absolute danger to our electoral system that I think it is. Because guess what, lefties, sooner or later, we Republicans are going to start committing fraud too. I think the day of the squishy Republican who would get beaten with dignity, I think their day is past. We have a few of them still, but I think do you see Dan Crenshaw saying, I'm not going to stoop their level. I'm just going to let them beat me. I don't see that.
Right.
And that's where this ends up, right? This is a third world level corruption problem, and that's the part of this that I'm really, really troubled by.
I gotta give a quick shout out. I saw Ethan Van Skyver's in the chat. What's up, Prince Sunbeam? Ethan Van Skyver. You need to come to my house right now. I did something weird today. I smoked an apple pie. Ethan. I need you to get in the car and get over here now.
The hardest part was getting it rolled
What
up.
kind of lighter did you use?
Not that kind of smoked.
We went for the same stupid joke.
I cooked my apple
Great
pie
minds think alike,
in my
Tim.
smoker, okay? There. How's that? It tastes like apple pie and pork.
Well,
Yeah, there might be
I
a
like
reason for
mine
it.
in Tim's version better, but okay.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. A little
Yeah.
bit of smoke to the crust. Now, you may be wondering, why would this idiot smoke an apple pie?
No,
I'll tell you
no.
why. My oven has been turned off because my kitchen was destroyed by water damage, and so I don't have an oven. The only thing I can bake or cook anything in is a smoker. So I was like, I'll just smoke an apple pie. And Lady Raggeds looks at me and she goes, "Yeah, we should smoke an apple pie. That sounds great. It's pretty good. It's
Really?
pretty good."
Yeah, no complaints.
Not two flavors I would normally want to glom together. Interesting.
Yeah. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Anyway, let me get some more of these chats, and then we should do some more analysis. Adzuma99 says, I think we should do away with TNKS, or I think it just means the whole thing, the whole voting thing, and just have Trump and Biden fight it out in the UFC. Last one standing becomes president, and in that situation, who do you think would win? Look, Biden has been cheating death and Alzheimer's for so long, I think maybe he would live through it.
Full body contact curling matches.
Nick,
yeah.
Give Tim the flag, the honorary Gadsden flag.
The honorary Gadsden flag?
Check your text messages.
Oh, criminy.
Uh-oh.
This is from my daughters, by the way, as well as myself. A token of our respect. Pretty good.
Okay, hold on. I'm pulling it up right now. We need this. This is good. Where is this? Let me. Oh. Let me move it over here. Hold on. I'm so bad at this. So bad at this. Windows is actually just pissing me off right now.
You want some of my medicine?
No, I don't need it. I don't need his help to be pissed off. There you go. See the Canadian Gadsden flag? Fuck a boot and find out.
A
Yeah, it should say A
or butt A.
or hoser.
Did it say
we don't
A
use
at the
those
bottom?
right
No, it does not. Okay. Anyway,
It's just butt A.
Hey, buddy.
Ah, come on, guy.
Fuck a boot and find out, buddy.
See? It just flows right off the tongue. I told you, Nick's an honorary Canadian.
I'm Canadian adjacent.
That's just too easy. I'm a professional. I'm not going to take that.
All right, Karn. Karn says, check out Michigan's Secretary of State site. They only have 4.6 million votes counted with Trump at 51.07%. Are they recounting? No. They have lower numbers than what Google has, and it was updated at 11:20 p.m. Wednesday. We covered this before, but just in case you missed it, I'll restate it again. Razorfist had tweeted this out a little over an hour ago, and I want to make sure people understand. The Michigan Secretary of State website does not have any data at all from Wayne County, which is Detroit. They don't have any of it. Detroit was something like 88% counted now, and all of the 88% that's been counted out of Detroit has been reported to the news sites. Okay, they have a way to unofficially report those numbers as the precincts in Wayne County get them. But the Secretary of State does not report them until the entire county comes in. So there's about 700,000 votes in Wayne County that are not being reported on the Secretary of State website. That's where you get the discrepancy in total votes, and that's where you get the discrepancy in Biden winning pretty handily in Michigan outside the margin of an automatic recount, because he takes the votes in Detroit 3-1. So again, just reiterating that for the stream, just in case people have not missed it or had missed that earlier on. I know it's confusing, but that's where it all is. And there are any number of complaints you can have about Michigan and shady shenanigans about numbers showing up for Biden or whatever. That isn't one of them. And believe me, when I saw it, I was like, what the hell is this? I've been looking at it all day and endeavored to figure out the difference. That's what the difference is. Okay,
Yeah.
Duncan.
Nick, real quick, according to the Washington Post, President Trump's reelection campaign said Wednesday it would launch a legal blitz to try to halt vote counting in Pennsylvania and Michigan, would seek a recount in Wisconsin, and challenge the handling of ballots in Georgia, threatening to draw out the final results of the razor-thin White House contest. So there's got to be more to his strategy than that.
Well, he can't announce anything in Arizona or Nevada yet because they don't have results. And he's got a possibility for victory. I don't think...
Yeah, he's coming from behind in those ones. You do not
Well, same true
want to challenge it.
for that matter. He's challenging the counting of additional ballots just to, That's an interesting question, by the way. So you remember when, Pennsylvania's law comes down and it says you can just keep apparently you just keep sending them in forever. It's not quite that bad, but and so the Republicans challenged it. They appealed it to the U.S. Supreme Court, and Justice Roberts sides with the other three liberals in a 4-4 decision to not hear it. But not hearing it is not the same as overruling the Republicans. So does Trump just simply make the same exact argument again, only this time there's an extra justice on the court that presumably would go with the conservative
in the Supreme Court? So they actually already brought it back to the Supreme Court prior to the election. After that first ruling, they brought it back when Amy Coney Barrett was appointed and sworn in. They brought it back. Then she did not partake in the decision, and they said, here's what they've said: we're not rendering a decision on this at this time. It was again a 4-4 split, and they said it will be we will hold or reserve our right to hear this case in the event that this state ends up mattering.
Okay,
so,
and that's fair.
Yep,
that's
it's a fair
timing.
ruling. And they basically
that should have rattled the Democrats.
right, and that's Amy did
I think the
not.
states don't matter.
She importantly did not recuse herself from that decision. She just
Right.
didn't participate in the ruling. So, that's an existing Supreme Court case in Pennsylvania. They don't have to bring a new case in Pennsylvania
okay.
there.
I missed that iteration.
Yeah, that's probably why they filed in Michigan, though, is they did not have an existing state court case in Michigan. The Pennsylvania case that's at the Supreme Court did go through the Pennsylvania courts, the appellate courts, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and then up to the U.S. Supreme Court. So it's already gone through its procedural due process to get to the Supreme Court on appeal from the state Supreme Court. The Michigan one will have those steps to go through very quickly at an accelerated schedule.
Yeah, I'm watching the chats, and of course, remember, I'm a disappointed Republican too. We don't call our party the stupid party for no reason. The Democrats are the crazy party, we're the stupid party. But guys, Trump is not a pussy, okay?
He just grabs them.
Well, whatever, but he's not. But the point is, he's not the kind of Republicans that we remember that just look for an opportunity to fold, okay? Ain't gonna happen. If this thing can be won by fighting, Trump will win it. And if it can't, well, we'll have to deal with it. I mean, we ain't got nowhere else to go. All right, this is it. this is mankind's last great hope. And so we either stand here and fight, or we just lie down and die. And I'm not much into going quietly into the dark night.
And Ty, there's more that all of us can do. We think that our job is over as soon as the vote has been cast, and that's false.
Good point.
Get involved politically. If this is really this important to you, then what are you doing still on your couch? Go find your local representative and go volunteer for them. It's
I
a
resemble
lot of
that
fun.
remark.
And you get free food. Most campaigns will feed you, and at the end of the night, they'll bring in a flat. Crack some beers and have a chat around a table with people who believe in most of the same things that you believe in politically.
And it's better than Democrat parties, because at Republican parties you crack open a cold one with the boys, and then at the Democrat parties you crack open some boys with the cold ones because it's all dead voters, right? Did that joke work? I don't think it did.
I disavow.
I don't think it did.
Look, in the context of the evening, I thought it was workmanlike. Yeah, Tim, that's a great point. One of the things you can do is, of course, you can write checks. But honestly, labor is harder to find than money sometimes, with these campaigns. I mean, I've had numerous fundraisers for politicians that I support. And what that is you get a bunch of your friends together, hit them up for $50, $100, whatever they'll kick in, and you buy some food and have some drinks and have people come over and have a party at your house. I mean, the politician you're supporting shows up. A whole bunch of the other politicians will show up to show support and also sponge with the voters. I mean, it's great to remind you that you're not alone either. That others do agree with you. No,
and it's a great way to meet new people, to make great business contacts, especially in the Republican Party. These are people you might shake hands with later when you try to sell something. You never know. What do you have to lose?
Nothing except time, and we got plenty of that right now.
Well, you do. Duncan. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. You don't.
To amplify Tim's point on making contacts, by the way, shared political views are a strong source of rapport. Really, I mean, I love it when I get a new client who's a typically a business owner, and it comes into a lawyer's office. Odds are the lawyer's going to be a liberal, and we sit down, and the first thing I do is pop off something about those stupid Democrats, and it's like he just goes, ah. Shared political views are powerful connections. So that's a win-win in my opinion. So.
Okay, let's do a couple chats and then we'll check in on Georgia and check in Did we finish the House analysis?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's still too early to call a lot of it.
Okay. Duncan McBride says, so I made a way more high-res version of the iconic smug tie from when he froze during yesterday's stream using an AI upscaler. Imagebox.com/FGCJMSOT. But there's some characters in there. It's very nice. Let's see. Tails DM says, have you seen the Project Veritas stuff? Yes, we've talked about it a couple times. Postal Service backdating ballots that were sent late. They're backdating the envelopes. I'm not sure of the process and if you could attach those envelopes to a ballot. Puggernaut says the question.
What? You can. The anti-terror stuff, they track every letter now.
No, but I meant once the ballot gets counted, I don't know if you could track
I see your
the
point. You
vote.
can't tag that to it. You might. Depends on what the envelope says, I guess, because they scan them. They scan the envelopes.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time believing that that they track your absentee ballot status by a tag and they allow them to track the vote that was made because we have an election that's blind.
Well, if there's a barcode on the ballot, I could see why they might put that barcode on the envelope as well. Because the envelopes are addressed and everything. You might, maybe. Who knows? I mean,
I'm just saying,
neither one of us are postal workers, so it's,
if they can track a ballot and the vote, I think we're talking about something that we're not allowed to do.
Okay.
That to me, because we have
Homeland Security.
Yeah, we have a blind election. So I get that we can track the status of a ballot envelope, but then connecting that ballot to a vote for either person would mean that you could connect the vote of the person who's attached to the ballot. You know what I mean?
Like the envelopes, when they send that, I'd love to see one of these ballots. Did the ballots have a return address? No, they would. You wouldn't put the voter's return address on the return envelope. You probably
But I know that in the States, for example, in California, someone even texted me theirs. When you send in your absentee ballot, they give you confirmation that your ballot was received and counted. Like they say, your ballot was received, it was processed, and it's good. So that means that they've tracked the envelope it came in. Now, if they could similarly track the envelope to the actual ballot and the actual vote that was cast, they then know how you voted, and that is something that we don't do. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I do.
So I don't think that is a thing that is done.
And I was confusing myself because there's no reason that the return envelope would have anything identifying you.
Yeah,
because it's going back. Right. I had it in my brain, the envelope that they send the ballot to you in, but they would naturally send it back in a different envelope. So I withdraw the question.
No, guys, you're misunderstanding. I know they track the ballot, that they receive it, but they don't track who you voted for on the ballot. Once it goes into the machine, it's blind. It has to be by law. They can't know that Nick Rekieta voted for Donald Trump unless I tell them. They can't do it. All right? That would be a means of voter intimidation that is impermissible, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, the cornerstone of democracy. We were talking about this before we went live. The cornerstone of democracy is the secret ballot. Yeah. Guys, you don't have democracy if your ballot isn't secret.
Yeah, and I just genuinely do not believe
myself up the way I wrap myself up.
I don't believe. I can be wrong. I'm happy to be shown to be wrong, but until you show me that they can connect your name to the person you voted for, absent you telling them through an exit poll, I'm not gonna buy it, because I believe that's actually unlawful in all 50 states.
I think Nick, we're back to this thing of we got to draw a distinction between what will affect this election and what might very well get a postal worker sent to jail, or drive changes in the law and so forth. It's not that they don't matter. but they don't matter right now to winning those states. So
Right.
if that makes any sense.
And so that's the great thing about the information is it's great to find and identify fraud in every possible place it comes in, because that helps us fix the next election. It helps us work on anti-fraudulent measures, better voting procedures, the better utilization of technology to eliminate fraud, which is something Tim and I were talking about today. How do we do this? How do we make this a more secure, more reliable process? Those are all great questions. But for this election, it ain't gonna matter.
Yeah, it's too late for this election. But if you want the perfect election, go find the legal, reasonable person, ask them who they're voting for, simulate the rest.
Hey, that seems unkind. Nick, I think he's making fun of us.
Everett Merrill says, I tagged you in a video on Twitter. California at its finest. The taped on election sign on the side of the car is amazing. What a mess. What a mess. I didn't finish reading Puggernot's chat here. It says the question needs to be answered if there's no way to reverse the fraud. If there is no reason for winning fraudsters to secure elections going forward, what is the integrity of the process going forward? Are we now a banana republic?
We haven't said that.
No, and I don't think and they didn't accuse us of saying that, but I don't think we're at banana republic status, because we do have methods for combating voter fraud, as long as we do have good journalism on it, good exposés on it, investigations into it. Look, voter fraud has been a question. It's been this weird duality in the media for the past 4 years, and maybe with Biden as president, they'll actually start investigating it because they'll want to prevent it for the next one or whatever when they assume Republicans are going to steal it. But they've been holding this dual position that there is no voter fraud and that there's a ton of voter fraud going on for the past 4 years. They've been holding it. They have to reconcile that at some point. Maybe we get to start having that discussion. And again, there are technological means and many smarter people than me who can figure out how to use technology, use better systems to improve the voting process. You've got to, our voting process has been largely the same since before I was born. We've absentee ballots have existed for quite a while. We've extended the windows for things like absentee and mail-in voting, but they've been around for a long time.
Punch cards go back to the turn of the century, the 19th century.
Right. We haven't significantly changed how we do it. We had iPads to the registration desk. We've had the machines, although there's been problems with those. But there are ways we can improve it. So we'll
think
see.
Smartphones have made using voting technologies, or people now know how to use touchscreens. It's just an everyday technology.
Yeah.
The way it worked here in Texas, I walked a touchscreen. We don't have. This is the first time, but we don't have block voting. You can't just say I vote for the Republican in every place. You have to actually go through. But you do all that stuff, and then it prints a ballot, and you walk over. You take the ballot over, and you put the ballot into a reader, and the reader acknowledges it.
Yep.
So it seems to work just fine.
I had to use a pen and fill it out like a Scantron, like I was taking a test in high school or whatever.
Yeah, I remember for a long time in Texas they had these you had a stylus and you punched a hole. By the way, I don't remember which of the states it was, and my notes are increasingly illegible. But at least
Ty's descent into madness, his Fibonacci spiral into madness on his notes, writing them in concentric circles.
Yeah. Well, basically,
Eldritch incantations filling in the gaps.
I have to make a sanity check every time I look at my notes because this is Eldritch stuff. No, one of the states had fairly rigorous identification requirements. You had to send in a copy of one of multiple kinds of identifications with the ballot. Interesting to know what happens to that. So I just don't. The game, the fat lady ain't sung yet, and I wouldn't say I like our chances because I hate the fact that we're here, but I also think that Donald Trump found it unsurprising. It didn't shock him that this was going to happen because
Right.
he's been saying it's going to happen. What'll be interesting will be, to the extent they got they can. I think they're going to try to discredit the whole concept of widespread absentee ballots.
Yeah, I think so too. That's what I would attack. I'd attack the entire integrity of the mail-in system, and he's laid the groundwork on it for months. It's the track to continue on, and it's the track to attack in court as well because it nets them their best chance of victory.
Yeah,
to say these were not even reviewed for validity in the way that every other vote has been reviewed. We need to do that.
That's the equal protection argument right there. That's the equal protection argument.
Yeah.
They might not buy it. They might not buy it, but it's not a bad one. That mail-in ballots were given were given an advantage,
right?
That other ballots weren't. You know.
Can you check Tim? Can you check the Supreme Court race in Minnesota? I don't know if the results are in on that yet, but if you could check, I'd like to see how badly Michelle McDonald lost. God, I hope so. Stephen Kretz says, so bets on if Trump goes the Ulysses S. Grant route and goes for separated terms. If all else fails, I'm leaning on that happening. If Trump would be 76 running at his next, if he were to win a separate term. I don't know if it's likely. I like my dad's idea that presidents can have 2 terms, but they must be separated. No consecutive terms. I think that'd be a fun system.
It would have its merits.
It would, because there wouldn't be a campaign season for a president, so they would just be working for 4 years with no promise of, like, no concern necessarily about immediate reelection. I think it's interesting. Swarm069 says dead people don't just vote in this election; they also get elected. Undead lives matter. Yep. There is a. Did you hear that? The state rep in like Utah or whatever died from COVID.
We talked about that last night.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were still on when we did.
Yeah.
Steve.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm having a senior moment.
Stiga says, "Oh, good. Go to Denny's and get your discount." Stiga says, "Here's how Trump can still win, guys. Republicans take the House and then elect Trump the Speaker. Speaker doesn't have to be a member of Congress per the rules, and then impeach and convict Biden and Harris. It's so easy, guys."
It's fake, really. Why did we think of that?
Bad Vibe says, Ty, I tried asking last night, can you explain quickly the historical significance of the Japanese peso and why its existence is tied to the internment camps in WW2?
No. I don't know. I would assume probably, what did they use that? Was that fiat currency they used in the internment camps? Maybe.
I've no idea, but probably something like that.
Now, I'm sorry, you have drifted outside my area of historical expertise, but I do want to look at it real quick. Japanese peso. Okay, it comes up.
Okay, you look at that. I'll read some more.
No, it's perfectly logical. Yes, I do actually know what this is. It's Japanese currency that was issued in the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Internment camps was okay.
I almost said something I can't say about the Philippines. Never mind. Thank you for accidentally interrupting my. It would have been a harmless question, but it would have been taken as super racist. So I'm gonna just ignore it.
Sure. By the way, McDonald lost pretty big time. 460,000 votes.
Oh God. I don't even care about the rest of the election.
Let the hate flow from you, Nick.
Her losing is my sweetest nectar. She does it every single election. It's great.
Boy, I tell you, getting elected is hard work. I don't think I'd be.
Hit us with the peso real quick. So Japanese currency issued in the Philippines.
Yeah. Japan invaded the Philippines, and so they had to occupy. So it was occupation currency.
Why is its existence tied to internment camps in World War II? Anything about that you know?
Well, there were internment camps in the Philippines. I'm sure there were POW camps, such as it was. I don't know if he's talking about internment camps back in the United States. I have no idea. Sounds like an interesting story, though.
Yeah. I don't know anything about it at all. Tim, do we have any updates out of Georgia or any updates out of Arizona or New Mexico?
Nothing since I last reported. We haven't moved one bit in Georgia.
Okay. What about Pennsylvania? I guess they had some reporting going on.
I've not a substantial amount that I've seen. It's still been that pretty consistent 160,000 since the start of the evening.
Okay.
I want to check in on Arizona really quickly. Head and do that.
Oh, you got it.
We're still behind in Arizona too.
Yeah, here's a Pennsylvania update in the news at 10:09 p.m. Well, that's information.
That was before we even started the show.
Yeah, they're just repeating the stuff that we already had, so that's not very helpful.
Okay, next we've got Red Mage 13 says, one of the positives that I'm taking from this is that Republicans already gained 4 to 5 seats in the House so far. Amusing to see the reactions from Dems and supporters along with the polls severely getting predictions wrong. I think what we need to do, the most important thing to do, it doesn't matter about the polls on a grand scheme. It matters about the polls on a Republican scheme. Republicans should never again, ever listen to a pollster, ever. Their methodology is outdated. It's not functional. Viva Frey was talking about it last night. It just isn't accurate. And
you're talking to the DNC propaganda ministry.
Yes.
Don't listen to them unless you're a Democrat. Because, Nick, I'll disagree with you. I'm tired of hearing about their methodology. There's no fucking methodology. Every single mistake they make is in favor of the Democrats. If they were merely incompetent, they would at least, overstate our advantage half the time. Never, ever, ever, not once. They are Democrat Party shills. And I would not go to Dr. Goebbels and ask him for an honest opinion of who's going to win World War II.
Right.
Sorry, I went off on a tear. That's
what you're here for. Bad Vibes. This is your catharsis. Bad Vibes says, here's what Republicans need. 1, a spine. 2, talk to the people. 3, keep their word. 4, think before speaking, but be unfiltered and unscripted. 5, fight like hell.
Let's just go with 5.
Yeah, just do that one.
Yeah, I think 5 encapsulates the advantages of the others. Look, this is not the GOP of 4 years ago. Okay, most of those rhinos are gone, and the few that are left. First of all, it's just a question: is Romney a pathetic Weasley rhino once there's no, Donald Trump?
We'll have to see. Ninebreaker 2 says, why don't more states have split district electoral votes for a more minute, detailed representation of voters? Because they haven't chosen to. But let me just let you know that Nebraska's 1 electoral vote for Biden is the reason why if he wins Nevada, he wins, rather than if he wins Nevada, it's a tie. so screw you, Nebraska.
I oppose those because I've always felt like the Electoral College, one of its purposes in life is to produce a distinct winner. So when you start, parceling out your electoral votes individually, I think you're sort of replicating the popular vote.
Although I do think it would be interesting to see what happens if you broke up a place like California and consequently a place like Texas into because Texas has 38 electoral votes and it's trying to be a battleground purple state. And let's say that happened, then 38 electoral votes goes Democrat. But in reality, if you broke it down by 38 districts, you'd really only get 5 to 6 electoral votes going blue and then 32 going red. In California, if you break it down by district, 55 electoral votes might become 10 to 12 electoral votes going blue and a whole lot of red ones. There is some merit to breaking it down. I don't know. But the real answer as to why is because the states haven't done it. That's it.
Well, but I think we're missing the key advantage of this, Nick, is it would make national politics very miserable for the politicians. And I'm okay with that. Really.
Yeah, going district by district
Oh, God,
to campaign
imagine.
rather than just major metro areas. Like right now there's approximately 70 places to visit. You've got one major metro area in most states, not in all of them. One major metro area in most states, and then in some states you have 2 to 5 major metro areas. We're talking about California, Texas, New York, I guess, some places in the Northeast, Michigan, maybe, Pennsylvania. Either way, there's about 70 to 80 stops that they have to make. If you broke it up by district, in theory, there's 535 or 435 or whatever that they have to make, which they should.
There's somebody in the chat. I don't know if it's a troll because he keeps repeating it or not. Republicans saying they'll make more under Biden, like that isn't directly insulting Trump. No, of course it's not, because it's a factual statement, you moron. It is a fact of life that if I voted my economic interest, I would be a Democrat. But I choose to understand the concept that what's good for me personally might not be good for the whole country. So you pretty much missed it completely. I hope that clarity helps you.
Yeah, the underlying principle there is Democrats take very good care of lawyers because the vast majority of lawyers are Democrats. But Republican lawyers benefit very much from those same things.
Not just lawyers are not just Democrats; they're Democrat donors.
Right.
And money talks. It greases the wheels of the political machine.
And it pisses liberals off when they come wanting to go nah. And I go, I'm gonna make a bunch of money, because it does. It gets under their skin something fierce. So I'd say it even if it weren't true. Yeah.
Let's see. Justin Watkins says, for Ty, is it time for a second revolution? Do we start digging the trenches, or do we stand down and stand by?
No, we have the Senate.
And we have the Senate and
our powder dry.
A 3-vote margin in the House means that controversial legislation doesn't go through the House with a 3-vote margin.
Because and I guarantee you, a lot of the House members that got slaughtered on the Democratic side were so-called moderate Democrats. And those that are left are going to be walking very carefully. I think, Tim, have you actually seen the
I just don't know enough about the House. You're asking a lot for a foreigner to keep everyone in the House in his head at the same time.
Well, I mean, listen, you put your big boy pants on. Sorry, just kidding. Well, that was a known thing going in, and I read that somewhere that a lot of them got slaughtered. It would be shocking if they didn't, because they sold themselves as moderate Democrats, and then they voted to impeach Trump. I mean, even when in many cases their constituents were telling them, we don't want you to do this. So, no, it's not time for a revolution. Not yet.
Cringe Lord says 4chan finding dead people voting all over the place in Wayne. So far, at least 50 been found in index. People essentially brute forcing their way through obituaries. And again, yep. And they should do that and find ways to eliminate it for the next vote. 50 votes isn't turning Wayne County.
It's not going to help us now. It'll help in the future.
Benjamin Myers says, but didn't you hear, Nick? Babylon B had a completely legitimate article on how the pollsters were 100% correct. It is just that people voted wrong.
According to the pollsters were correct.
They are. Nate Silver is even trying to say how they were right the whole time. It's beautiful in more flowery words.
And Ty, did you see this going into the election? How every newspaper was saying, "We learned our lessons. We're not going to repeat the same mistake."
Tim, I'll do you one better. What I heard, to the extent you could actually get these jokers to give any kind of actual, concrete descriptions of the changes they made, they were mostly concerned with being sure they captured these millennial voters. And I'm going, your polling wasn't too skewed to the right in 16. That wasn't your problem. They are propagandists. And, I disregarded, but it's hard to disregard them completely, because you go to your blogs, you go where you read your news, and you see it, and you just and it's hard for it not to affect you. But guys, it's just propaganda. and they were willing to be clown themselves and make complete jackasses out of their entire profession to help the senile, creepy derelict win. Now, if that's not an ideologue, I don't know what is. So
and go one step further. Like, yeah, that's not just limited to the polling industry. We're seeing the scientific industry go that route too, where the scientific research has become so politically polarized that you can't trust anything, left or right.
Yeah, well, on anything that matters. Like, if the science is on some obscure thing, okay, maybe. But anything that matters, like we're talking about greenhouse gases and global warming, can't trust it. It's polarized. COVID, can't trust it. It's polarized. Hell, just petroleum products in general, can't trust it. It's polarized.
I
want to point out that it's. I'm not saying there's any chance to victory here, but Trump's gap in Wisconsin is down to 20,000 votes. I think that's down from where it was, which is an update from last time I saw.
I think that's how much he won Wisconsin by.
He's
very small number.
He's now down.
I had Biden up 20,000 in my.
Oh, maybe it hasn't changed. Then maybe it's just me.
These are eldritch runes here, and they may have changed.
Ty, I need you to be very careful reading that document. I don't want some horrific ancient god rising from the sea, unless it's off California. Then I'm okay with it.
It is 2020, so we probably shouldn't we shouldn't treat that lightly. So
Bad Vibes. Bad Vibes says at the time of the invasion of the Philippines, a few days after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the Philippines was U.S. territory. The invasion was added justification for internment camps. So there you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
I don't understand I don't understand the peso connection to the internment camps, though.
I don't know. I have no idea. I think someone was saying something about being captured for the. I think they mean the Japanese created internment camps, not the Japanese internment camps in the U.S.
Okay.
And maybe the Japanese currency from the Philippines is used to bribe guards to keep you from dying.
Well, that would be
being
logical.
tortured.
I mean, that was the money.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
So, Trump campaign's assembling an all-star legal team for election challenges. If it has Lynn fucking Wood in it, run for the hills. If Trump hires Lynn Wood, he'll end up in prison.
Look, if you're suing in Michigan, hire Kevin Landau.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Yes. Kevin Landau. Maybe we need to convince the Democrats to hire Kevin Landau to represent them in Michigan.
I'm surprised how long it took for that reference to land.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm like reading and thinking about the next bit, and then
So you were totally ignoring me.
No, I wasn't. It just Kevin Landau entered my head, and then he rode his bike around in my brain. He hit a couple breathalyzers on the way, and he rode out, and I was like, "Oh, Kevin Landau's in Michigan." That was good. Okay.
Nick, did you go volunteer to be a lawyer for all this?
For the Trump campaign?
Yeah.
No, I'm staying as far away from this shit as possible.
I have to make payroll, unfortunately. So
yeah. We've got the things I've got left are Justice Chats, Super Chats. I want to get final opinions from the panel on what's going on in just a second. But before that, I want to make an announcement for tonight after the show. I will be going to twitch.tv/Ricada Law. We will be watching RoboCop. Yes, it's on Amazon Prime. RoboCop. Friends call me Murphy. You can call me RoboCop. So we'll be watching that. Come hang out on Twitch for RoboCop. God, I'm so pumped. All right.
Watch it turn out to be fake news.
No, I already checked it. I already checked it.
PolitiFact fact-checked it, too.
Nick Ricada's lying about watching RoboCop after the stream. We rated it mostly false. He'll be watching RoboCop 1987.
He actually wasn't watching. He spent too much time talking.
Okay. So, let's get final thoughts, I guess, from Ty first about what's going on. Summarize the stream, talk about Senate House, whatever you want to do. What do we got here?
We got to fight, and Trump's going to fight. In the meantime, guys, it's going to be okay. It's not going to be great, but like the song goes, you don't always get what you want, but you do sometimes get what you need. Keeping the Senate is beyond huge because now we don't have to have that revolution. I do think Biden and Harris would be just stupid enough with the Democratic Congress to overcalculate. And there was no blue wave. If the Democrats are being halfway honest, this isn't that great of an election. Yeah, they may have knocked off the orange man, but think about the fun if they don't. So that's my thought.
Very good. Okay. Let's see. Do you have
Yeah, so one thing we never really talked about were the exit polls, and especially the collapse of the white male vote. In 2016, it was Trump plus 31. Now it's Trump plus 18. So, we coughed up 13% of the white men to Biden. My guess, because Biden's gains are Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, my guess is it's those blue-collar, working-class Democrats. And I would love to hear some theories as to why they moved. If you cut through the media BS, they haven't had it better in a long time. Bringing those manufacturing jobs back.
I can't believe that. Do you find those exit polls credible? I mean, are they?
Yeah, I just searched them and they came up. I think they're on CNN or whatever.
Well, no. What I mean is there any particular reason to assume that they're any different than the other polls?
I mean, exit polls generally are a little more acceptable than the average poll. Everyone will point to Brexit. That exit poll just missed everything. But I love the insights that they can offer. The trend is more important than the hard number.
Yeah, but and I'm confident saying this across the board because I have friends elsewhere and we all compare notes. None of us know a single bona fide Trump voter who said, I'm not going to vote for Trump again. Not one. They don't exist. Those polls are flawed, in my opinion. There is no. The blue collar vote didn't. No. If that's what the exit polls are saying, they're completely screwed because I don't believe it. Nick, do you believe it?
Well, I already shared that I do. I believe that. And again, I want to point out.
But Nick, we're talking about blue collar whites.
Look,
college educated Republicans.
I want to point out that I love the brashness of Trump. I think it's great. I think it's what allowed deals to get done in foreign policy, deals that have never been done, deals that have been long times in the works and been unable to execute. He got them done. North Korea, South Korea, huge. Stuff in the Middle East, great. He did it. I think it's because of his brashness. Don't get me wrong. There are people out there, I can promise you, and they are white Republican voters who said, what?
Blue collar.
I don't know. Look, I don't know any blue collar people. I don't know. I don't know whether or not they're blue collar, but I can extrapolate. I can extrapolate that there are white collar Republicans right now who don't like that about Trump, and so then I can infer that there are blue collar ones too.
Nah,
no,
sorry, I can't buy it. It's you're going to vote for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden because you don't like Trump's tone, and you're a blue collar male voter, white male voter. Bullshit. That's my opinion. I'm not buying it. I can't. College age, yeah, sure.
I will say that all the
do not like Trump.
I will say that the blue collar workers I know around here are all Trump. But I'm in a plus Trump area. I'm not in a I'm not in Michigan, right? Like I'm not in a place that kind of was Democrat, kind of went for Trump, and now is going back Democrat. I'm in a plus Republican county, a severely plus Republican county that has been for the past 10 years.
Well, I'm getting that, but remember, as I said earlier, I get the same information from people in California and other places and areas of California that are not, like East Texas, or I mean, no, Tim, I think I don't believe that. I simply don't believe, because I haven't seen it. I mean, and that was always a comforting factor for those of us when we were those Trump people trying to think through the election was, Trump seems to be utterly solid with his base. So I think it's propaganda.
Yeah.
I mean,
and by all means, the reason that we've discredited these polls, the reason we don't trust the media is because we take a statement they make and we say, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And that is the key to skepticism.
Well, and the thing is, if you're trying, look, if I'm an ideologue, if I was a Democratic propagandist, I would love to drive a wedge between blue collar whites and Trump. So why not fabricate the fact that, some of your friends and neighbors really don't like Trump anymore? I mean, what you got to lose?
I want to point out that there are a couple numbers from coming into Arizona. Here's the interesting thing. So more votes have come in. Biden has widened his lead a little bit. However, the percentage of the expected vote went from 86% down to 84%.
So the Republicans were right about the higher number then.
So there are more ballots. They're adjusting their numbers in real time on the number of ballots that they expected to come in. Again, and this is reflected in what we saw in Wisconsin, where we didn't really talk about this, but Wisconsin's voter totals came in at 89% of voters per registered voters. So 89% of registered voters voted in Wisconsin. The last election was 77%. Prior to that, 60%. Prior to that, like 75%. Prior to that, about 60. Wisconsin apparently voted, a massive amount higher than normal. Something in the neighborhood of a 30% increase in voter turnout. It's, Arizona having higher voter turnout this year isn't off the table, and that appears to be what's going on there. It's also why you see Georgia and North Carolina still counting votes, even though they have, quote unquote, 100% of the votes in. It's not what these places are showing are not registered voters versus votes in. Their predicted ballot receipts based on historical data of the percentage of registered voters who are voting. Remember, anything you see on a news site that is not a Secretary of State site has a lot of actuarial work where a bunch of nerds were thrown into a room and the temp was turned down to 50, and they said, you don't get to leave until you give us some predictions on how many ballots are coming in, what kind of percentages are going to be. So that is updating in real time. We're going off of those numbers, but those numbers have assumptions built into them too. But Biden did widen his lead a little bit. Those votes were from Maricopa County. Allegedly, a large portion of the uncounted votes are from outside Maricopa County, which is more rural, more Republican.
And as soon as you say that, he immediately closed that gap. It's now only 69,000.
Wait, really? So there were new numbers that came in, but since my giant spiel?
Yep. So 80,000 was the magic number all night. It's been that way for a long time. It widened briefly for all of about 9 seconds, and then immediately he's closed it again to 69,000.
There I go, making this brilliant point about everything, and then it changes.
I'm just following the data, Nick.
It was workmanlike.
So good, but that's the thing. That's why I've been saying, and this is not my unique analysis.
Yeah,
lots of people have been saying Arizona is still in play.
Lots of people have been saying, huh? Do all the people tell you have the best Arizona fields?
Look, here's what I don't understand. We're in Arizona. we're doing beautiful. Lots of votes are being counted. Those votes are going our way. And then they stop counting. I don't know why. We don't know.
That is a
Well,
good that kind of crap. I mean, they ought to look, if there is a benign explanation, they really ought to give it. They're not doing it. They're doing the country a terrible disservice if they're not.
Well, in some places, they're allegedly closing down the counting places due to fuckery. Is the scientific term for it. And it's
so I go in the office today and I'm referring to frippery, right? and several. Okay, what is frippery mean? I said, well, that's a nice way of saying fuckery.
Yeah.
So, you know,
but you've got, here's the thing. You've got volunteer election workers, and then you've got volunteer poll workers. Tensions are high. People start screaming, yelling about something, and then they just go, fuck it, everyone go home. I mean, that's unfortunately
lawyers
that's
start doing math, you know you have lost. Well, okay, that's fair.
Lawyer mad that lesson never winded. No, I've got the numbers that I used. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. It widened and then it lessened. It just like, never mind. I won't say the finish of that joke. All right. Well, that is the, I think that summarizes the stream. We do have a bunch of chats to go through real quick. So let me start going through those. That way we can end this thing on time. Crusader Saracen says, is Razor coming on again? Apparently not tonight. I did drop him a link, but I didn't. It was last minute, and it was just a prayer. Can you make it? It says, I feel like his insight would be useful. Also, do you remember the 2000 Bush Gore count fight? Would that apply here? We kind of covered that earlier. Crusader Saracen says, Nick, we already have a problem. The vote has already failed. If the elites get away with this, they get away with anything. Trump can literally send the literal SS to shoot people in, and it's no more blatant nor egregious than this fraud before us. I'm not there yet, buddy.
Yeah, let's avoid the genocide for maybe another couple of years.
He says the Dems are trying to napalm the village to save it. No matter which way it goes, nobody on either side will believe any election results ever again. Even if Trump gets 100,000 fraudulent ballots thrown out in Michigan and Wisconsin, the American experiment is dead. I'm more likely to believe that in the middle of the night, 1.35 million mail-in ballots magically appeared and were 100% write-in votes for Bashar al-Assad than I am to believe they're actual 100% votes for Biden. So that was his.
There's a prison about 100 miles away from my house where there's all these people that did these horrible things. I guess that means America's bad and irredeemable because people did bad things in it.
Yeah.
Seriously, stop saying stupid shit like that. This is the last best hope, guys. And all I'm hearing from you is, stop it. Knock it off. For God's sakes. Grow a pair, be a man, unless you're a woman, of course, and get out there and fight for this country.
Oh, Tim, I'm seeing some people saying that Senate's tied 48-48. Can you comment on the
tie is because they haven't called a couple of races yet. Alaska's one of them. There's no threat to the Senate race in Alaska. We're going to win it. They just haven't counted enough of the early votes to call it completely. They haven't called the Georgia Senate, but there's a very large gap that Ossoff has to make up, and there's just not enough votes there. If the votes were all in Fulton County, maybe there was a chance Ossoff could make that up, but that's not the case. Same going for Cunningham over in North Carolina. They haven't called that race yet, but I'm confident it's going to end up going Republican. The lead is, I think, 130,000 votes. Tillis over Cunningham. And then there's going to be a Georgia special election runoff for their other Senate seat. That one, everyone believes it's just going to be Republican. I don't see much of a threat to it, and that's your 52 there.
But even if the Georgia one goes awry, it's still likely a 51 majority for the Republicans.
Right, and I have there's a better chance of of Ossoff coming back and beating Perdue in the normal Georgia Senate race than there is of the special Senate runoff not going our way.
So there you go.
Tim, I got a serious question. If Trump flips Michigan back, that will have an effect on the Senate race, won't it?
Not necessarily.
Well, I mean,
I've seen a lot
is
of.
it tight enough that it could?
I mean, I've seen a lot of people betray the senator there. I forget the name. Is it Jones?
In Michigan?
Yeah, in Michigan.
Yeah, it was Jones. I believe Jones or James or something. Maybe
Yeah.
it's James Jones. I think he lost.
Yeah, but I saw like the number of votes that he got versus the votes that Trump got. There was a couple of people who kind of betrayed him on that one. So not necessarily if Michigan flips, does the Senate automatically flip too?
Yeah. So in other words, he's further apart from his opponent than Trump is from Biden. Is that
Right? Which actually is the exact same problem Cal Cunningham has in North Carolina. The margin between Cunningham and Tillis is bigger than the margin between Biden and Trump.
Well, tell you what, if they knock out something like 7 or 8% of these ballots for being for not complying, that's going to be a pretty.
It is kind of wishful thinking that they would, but if they do, it's not going to take much of a percentage change in the mail-in ballots. That's a disadvantage of having so many mail-in ballots. Is that again they're potentially more prone to being disqualified than a walk-in ballot, and if they are disqualified at those sort of traditional rates, it very well can flip a state. And that's why a recount in this, my normal maxim is I've never seen a recount go red. I've never seen a net gain for Republicans on recounts. I'm sure they're out there. I haven't seen it. Typically I see them skew left. Okay. But this isn't a normal election. None of this is normal.
It's not your normal Republican.
Right. Gunnar Renee Oy says Biden's got a big leg up by just not being Hillary Clinton. Democrats staying home because of lack of enthusiasm. People who always vote against the incumbent were a factor in 2016. Right. It's possible. It's possible. I mean, I'm curious to see what the voter turnout in every state is. If the voter turnout in Wisconsin is anomalous, then it needs to be looked at. If the voter turnout in every state is trending up in the 85+% range, then we just know that everybody was energized.
Yeah. By the way, I've got a friend who is an MIT honors graduate engineer, just total badass. He said to me there are numerous statistical anomalies. I've asked him to give me some examples. I'll forward them to you. If because he doesn't generally say things unless he's figured it out. I'd be curious to know what he's turned up.
Yeah, I'd be curious too. I think I know who you're talking about, and I like that guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Odd Man Out says, is the Trump hate really so intense that Joe Biden is able to get the most presidential votes in American history by merely not being dead? Mainstream media could probably manipulate the American public to vote for Xi Jinping if they wanted to. Look, him getting the most, in theory,
the population, right?
Yeah, in theory, every single presidential election that doesn't follow a catastrophic war should get the most votes.
Because population continues to expand.
Right. So
hey, we're doing math again, Nick. We're doing math.
Yeah, we're lawyer mathing again.
Somewhere someone just lost.
The Pie Baker says Nick grifts so much he makes his wife shove a quarter in his coin slot for every 30 seconds of sex. Malik Foxon says, originally I was upset that Trump might be out of office because I don't get to see overreactors but I remembered the right holds the Senate. Kamala can try to pass all the shit she wants when Biden passes during the first year, but the Senate will block. No, Biden will get the Ginsburg treatment for 2 years and 1 day from inauguration.
Guys, Mrs. Biden's going to have some input on that. She is a Hillary wannabe. So this idea that Biden's just going to quietly go away, I wouldn't count on that if I was the left. If you're the Republicans and they want to remove Biden because he's incompetent, don't you vote to keep him?
I do, absolutely.
Just out of sheer spite. I think you're going to do good with him, and just to torture Kamala.
That was why it always bothered me that the Democrats impeached Trump. I'm like, you want Pence? You want Pence to come in? Like, if you think Trump's an idiot, you want Pence. Presumably, if you think Trump's an idiot, you think Pence is more reasonable. And just that's my assumption about what they might think.
Chat, your best Mike Pence nicknames. Go.
Yeah. Sergeant McSalty says, I would have voted orange, but I left Jackson County, Missouri a couple weeks ago for fear of riots and missed the deadline to re-register in Smith County, Texas. How bad should I feel? P.S. Hey, Ty, you hiring? Half joking.
Half answering. Not right now, but you never know. You didn't hurt us in Smith County. It's pretty strong Trump country here.
Dread Clown says 2000 election director of Florida, Brenda Snipes, was finally fired by Florida governor last year. What he didn't know is her job was a phylactery of the spirit of Broward County election fraud, now released on the rest of the country. We didn't know. We're sorry. Unanswered question says, it's amazing how far ahead Trump was in the swing states. And then they stopped counting, and magically a bunch of Biden votes came in and closed the gap. We all knew this gay-op was coming, but the balls to violate the will of the people shows they just don't care. A little bit, but guys, the problem is we didn't know, and you probably didn't know, we didn't know, that those votes were mail-in votes. Those weren't counted early, like many of us, myself included, had assumed. They were counted late. So that's where a lot of those votes are alleged to have come from. Crusader Saracen says 89% turnout is literally over 5 standard deviations over the mean. That's not the best turnout of your lifetime. That's the best turnout of 1,000 lifetimes. Or for an old fogey candidate who couldn't get 50 people at a rally, that's just fraud. And
Nick, we talked about this before the stream. Trump has his rallies and his enthusiastic supporters, who, by the way, a lot do come from out of state. Let's not pretend that's not true. But if you're looking for the Democrat rallies, well, it's the march. It's the Women's March, the Antifa March, the labor strikes and labor marches. Those are your Democrat rallies.
Right. And it's hard to measure because they're not going to the Biden stuff. And you got to remember, I know, like the Hodge twins voted out. If you think Biden got more people out to vote than Obama, you're crazy. I don't think Biden got Democrats out to vote.
Trump might have gotten them out.
Look, one of the hard parts about being brash and brazen is you do make people energized against you, and so that could be some of it. I mean, I don't know, but it's not unreasonable. As Ty, as a lawyer, have you ever encountered where you have something go south merely because of how one party acts? Not even the reasonableness of what they've put on the table, but just how they do it can galvanize.
I warn clients that it's unwise to gratuitously piss people off in a negotiation. Yeah. Guys, here's the thing. All we have right now are suppositions and suspicions. We have some evidence that it makes it reasonable to infer something's going on, but we genuinely don't know. Trump really could have actually lost. That's possible. I don't think he did. I mean, if I was forced to bet one way or another, I'd bet on there being substantial fraud. But we don't know. The thing is, we do have a process. We've got courts. We've got a fighter in place. Let's let them work it out. And how about we, find something fun to do for the next maybe week or so.
We'll be covering major election stuff here on the channel for the next week. But other than that, I'm not anticipating a lot of coverage until something big happens.
I'm talking about sitting around letting this stuff eat at you.
Right.
That's just not. Don't do that. Trump's got this if it can be gotten.
Dance in Your Potato Salad says, there's a lot that seems mathematically impossible. I mean, 120,000 votes for Biden and none for Trump in a district. How can they just stop counting ballots because they didn't like the numbers? Also, wasn't there a state with 101% registered voter turnout? I haven't seen that at the state level. There was reported that there are precincts in Michigan, 5 precincts in maybe it was Milwaukee if it wasn't Michigan, where they had over 100% voter turnout. Yeah, that can happen. There are less nefarious ways to describe it, but they don't tend to account for that many numbers. But just as a hypothetical theory for how one person can get 2 votes without meaning to, or without actually intending to defraud the vote, they could simply mail in a ballot 2 days ago. They'd go, oh gosh, a whole bunch of people told me if I didn't mail in my ballot by 4 days ago, it might not be counted. Then they go in on election day, they vote, turns in their ballot, was received and was counted, but at the time they voted, the numbers were not updated in real time. Adam DeAngeli, whatever his name is, Adam on this show talked about that happening in Michigan. That doesn't mean that there was actual voter fraud, but it does practically happen in that way. Now, does that account for an extra 5% of registered voters? Not necessarily, but it can happen. Sorry, Tim.
Yes, just a small note though. If they if the election authority gets your vote, your mail-in vote, and then you try to vote in person, theoretically they should turn you away because they have the record of you voting. What often happens is they get the mail-in ballot the day after. It was postmarked 2 days before the election, so it's still valid, but they got the mail-in after you voted in person on election day because you wanted to make sure that it got in on time.
Right.
So then they have to discard it, but it still gets counted. It'll still get double counted until the county authority goes back and sweeps that number out.
And Adam was explaining how in Detroit specifically, their numbers don't update live on election day. So when you walk into the election thing, they've got numbers from like 11:59 p.m. the night before on the mail-in ballot. So they don't actually have a live update. Again, one of those things that could be fixed with technology. So, Crusader says, sorry for the black pilling. I'm pulling for a victory in the courts, but I'm just disillusioned. Also, I recommend smoking a pumpkin pie rather than an apple. It works really well. Next time.
At least I didn't tell you to put those video game controllers down, get a haircut, and get a job. So, you know.
Wait, what?
By griping at the red pillars, I said at least I didn't tell them to get a haircut and get a job.
Get a haircut, you hippie! Night of Hope X says, respectfully disagree with Tim. I volunteered for the GOP in 2016, and if you're a staunch conservative, it's a very fast way to become disillusioned with candidates and the political class. These people are not typically down-to-earth regular folk like us. Also says, moreover, if you have a high IQ and you're an introvert, talking to the general public can be exhausting and depressing. I'm not saying it can't be fun, but for many personality types, phone banking and knocking doors is not the way to contribute to politics. You'll never catch me do it.
There's
Ever.
a lot more jobs to do on a campaign than just talking to people. I hear this all the time. And by the way, I'm sorry you had a terrible experience with it, but especially if it was just a bad candidate, don't ever let that deter you.
Oh, I think I speak for Nick, and Nick, I think I speak for you when I say I do want to caution the guy about one thing. There's no need to respectfully disagree.
No. I disrespectfully disagree with people all the time. Check out my Twitter.
We don't need that sort of thing around here.
I respectfully acknowledge your respectful disagreement.
That's too Canadian for me. Malik Foxon says, tired of people calling me a sellout, Nika, coon, etc. for voting Trump and having to remind them when they tell me I voted for a racist president that their candidate told me I ain't black. Because we clearly all think the same, I suppose. Big sigh. Sorry, buddy. Where Tiger Ray says, if you come to my house, I'll just make a bunch of jokes about 90s hip-hop. That's not racist. Where Tiger Ray says, can we start making mail-in ballots with security features like we do our money? Can we require thumbprints with signatures? What about two-factor authentication? Can we give them a code when they request the ballot and that code has to match when they submit it? We were talking about that earlier. The potential for something like blockchain encryption or whatever.
How would you then rig the vote, though, with all that crap? I mean,
there's challenges and benefits to all of it. It's,
I mean, immediately half your boomer population just goes, "Oh, technology, I can't do it."
Good. No, just get him out. Get him out. Ty's like at the ballot box, just hitting his iPad on it. Work. Do I put the whole iPad in the machine?
I went to the store to buy an iPad, and all they had was MaxiPad.
I bought an extra iPad just for today to put in the machine because I know I lose it when I vote.
I'm looking forward to those days, Nick. I don't dread senility. I embrace it.
Where Tiger Ray. Ty's iPad ballot comes in. It's just a bunch of pictures of like his forehead as he's trying.
Or he tries putting the iPad through the fax machine.
Nick, have you heard the saga of my iPads?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm literally on my 12th iPad.
Well, your first mistake was buying Apple products, and
Yeah,
yes, chat,
yeah,
I understand. Sound off on me in the chat. I said it. If you own Apple products, you are a tool. You are not a good tech person.
All right. Well,
Jeez.
it's not a technology issue with me. I'm rough on iPads. It was so bad that the insurance company that we had for our whole company threatened to drop us if I made another claim.
Wow, I'm getting a lot of agreement here.
Ty, well, here's how bad Ty is with iPads. He tried to fax me his iPad, but he shoved it in the shredder instead.
Oh, common mistake.
I actually broke the last iPad on right after your show we did at Christmas.
Did you? Did you like get up and accidentally knock over the tray it was on or something?
I swear to God, just happened.
Oh my God. Okay. Dread Clown says, fun hypothetical. What if the anxiety and suspense gives Biden a heart attack publicly because we'd never know if he died behind the scenes? If
aware of
the hypothetical would be
just a run for the Senate.
if the Electoral College votes for Biden and Harris, Harris would still take she'd be sworn in as president. I mean, that's how that would likely turn out.
Did we really need to go there? Did we really need to go to that?
That's what they're asking. They're asking if Biden died in public before the election, like before the election is official, what happens? I think constitutionally, Harris has what we would consider a future property interest in the presidency. I think that's what ends up happening.
I'm glad I've got so much thumbs I can take when this is over. Yeah, that whole thought just kind of unsettles.
Me too. Silky Johnson says, what does Ty mean about voting for his financial well-being by being a Democrat? Does he mean as a lawyer? Yes. Or as a higher than average per year wage earner? No. Also, Nick, have you introduced Ty to the totally hysterical, accurate show Spartacus? Or historically accurate show. Have you ever watched the Spartacus show?
I've watched the movie Spartacus.
That's not the same thing. Ty, how many penises were in the movie Spartacus?
I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch this show.
It's a good show. It really is a fun show, but historically accurate, no. But yeah, Mussolini says democracy is beautiful in theory, in practice it is fallacy. You in America will see that someday. Meximan and Cheese says, at Ty, if the rigging took the election from Trump, then how did Democrats lose so many House seats and not gain any Senate seats? Is it a courtesy to leave senators out so they don't go after the fraud? I genuinely, I'm telling you, I think people underestimated how many Republicans Trump turned off. I really think they underestimated it. I think look, if we're going to lay blame on pollsters who skewed heavily Democrat, I'm going to say we need to lay some blame at the feet of the Republican propaganda machine and say that Trump
you
really
can't reason
did do
with
it.
Never Trumpers. You can't. They're a bunch of tantrum throwing infants, and I don't know how. I didn't think there were that many of them, but look, it's circumstantial evidence, right? It's circumstantial evidence that there might be something wrong with the fraud. There might be fraud, but that's all it is right now. It's
well, that's why I'm saying I think they underestimated it. I don't know. I'm not saying it's definitely that, but that's my theory on it right now. Or maybe they just stole it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we don't. I mean, we're speculating. I guess we could handicap. That would be fair enough to the stream to say, what do you think is more likely? I think it's most likely that there's been fraud, sufficient fraud to change the result of the election. Not everybody agrees with me on that.
Okay, next we've got Big Red Bear says, I just want to add, because this has been coming up a lot today, Kamala and Biden are not communists, they are corporatists. But the oligarchs they follow are tech giants and insurers. They're not pro-labor, they're only left on culture, not on workers. So there you go.
Yes,
Thank you
that's
for.
true.
I do think Kamala represents that more left-leaning part of the Democrat Party. Kind of the we've all agreed that picking Mike Pence was one of Trump's best moves early in the campaign. Mike Pence was that steady voice to the more bombastic Trump. This is a similar thing. Kamala Harris is more bombastic than Joe Biden. I think a piece of plastic laying on the ground is more bombastic than Joe Biden, but I digress. But yeah, your VP pick is supposed to cover up your weaknesses, and Kamala Harris does cover up some of Joe Biden's weaknesses with that further left segment.
Yep, I think I agree with that.
Yeah,
it'd be like he would have probably nominated like AOC or something stupid if she was old enough.
Yeah.
Okay, next we've got Meximan and Cheese says, if Biden does win, I'm hoping he survives every Minecraft attempt in Mr. Magoo fashion. Kamala pushes him off a pier and he lands on a boat full of pillows. Night of OPEC says, Ty, I know your blood and guts, and I know your blood and guts, and you want to continue to fight, and I agree with you, but the thing we learned in this election is that the process is a sham. We don't even know if the machines count right or if the mail-in counted twice. Burn it.
We do not know that. Some of us suspect that, but we don't know it. So why don't we wait before we disregard the entire fucking system? Why don't we wait to see what we can find out?
Yeah. Let's see. Night of Hopex finally says, hey, what are those other jobs then? The thought process, especially in the primaries, is that if you're not on the ground pressing voters, you aren't doing anything. That was the attitude in 2016. What else are volunteers actually out doing? Politicking. I worked for a campaign. I wrote for the campaign. I wrote materials. I wrote a blog. I wrote speeches for the candidate.
I wrote a blog.
I did. I ghost wrote the blog for the candidate. It was
Did you send your vote in on the iPad, Nick?
What was that?
Did you send a vote in on an iPad?
This was 2010. Blogs were actually a thing.
They still are to some extent.
I
love the terminology. I wrote a blog.
I did. I wrote the whole blog. I did all of it.
Did you program?
I ran a campaign.
Or
That's what
mark up it before someone jumps down my throat. Jeez.
The one thing that annoyed me was all the edits. I was like, hey, if you want me to write your fucking blog, just let me write it. It's better than when you edit it. You're bad at it. Crusader Saracen says Trump had the highest in party approval of any president ever at around 96-ish%. Reagan had around 90-ish. In unopposed primaries that were formalities, he had more votes than Biden, Warren, and Bernie combined. I don't think he turned off that many voters. If that's right and I'm wrong, then the Republicans are dead. Then as a party,
there was massive fraud.
The amount of fraud that would have to overturn the entire Republican turnout.
If Trump was slightly ahead in all these states and was winning?
I don't know.
You're talking 3 states. I mean, 2 states actually at this point.
No, I'm just saying though, here's the thing. If the Republicans had the highest approval rating of Trump ever, right, and showed up to the polls and still lose, it's only going to get worse because presumably the next president won't have the highest approval rating ever. So
right, but in between those events, you can theoretically, I would think, do something about the fraud. If it's fraud. If it's fraud, yeah. I mean, that's the frustrating thing about this, and I'm not mad at Nick. Well, I am. But
you should be.
Should be, yeah. Is that there really are perfectly plausible, completely different explanations for all this stuff, and we just kind of have to see. Don't lock yourself into one interpretation. See what let's go where the evidence leads us. You know.
Mario Carter 13 says DNC says Omoemo Shinderu. Progressives. Nani? Okay. Kuro Mythos says, can you explain how Nevada and Oregon are blue if the majority of the states are red when you click on them? Oregon 87% vote counted and Nevada 75% of votes counted.
I think you're just looking at land area versus population.
Oh yeah. That's the answer. Because so the short answer to that is that most states, I believe all the states except for Nebraska and Maine, choose their electors by a general popular vote. So it doesn't matter what any of the rural counties vote. It matters what their overall popular vote is.
Which is why Minnesota goes blue. It has nothing to do with literally everywhere outside of the Twin Cities. It's that you start with such a big lead in the Twin Cities, it's a long night to try and catch up.
Yeah, because Minnesota has 8 million people and 4 million of them are in the metro. I mean, that's...
Ouch. Dang,
it's just how it goes. Rock Roll This says, longtime watcher Nick, I need some positivity. Everyone around me is depressed and doomsaying and it's starting to get to me. Look, at the worst case scenario is that Biden wins and it's not really all that bad. Like, everything's going to be okay. We've lived through Democrat presidents. We had a commie in office for 8 years and we still exist. So,
well, we defeated gun control for at least 2 years. We've defeated gun control. We've defeated the Green New Deal. We've defeated the laundry list of all that liberal shit they were going to do by simply holding the House. That is worthy of saying, oh, I'm good. Glad we did that. You know, focus on the stuff we did right. Learn from the stuff we did wrong. Tell your friends to, you know, get a haircut, get a job, get off the couch, stop whining.
Anonymous Anglo says, should we show up to protest in urban centers? Man, you will never catch me advocating for in-person physical protest. I don't think it's effective.
Give up a day's pay to go do that.
But go have fun.
Go to the park. I learned this from an artist. If all the chicks are there, go to the party. There you go.
There you go.
He went to all the protests because that's where the chicks and the music and the beer was. So there you go. Protests are fun. If you're married, stay home. Joe Crazy says, what's up, Nick? Have you checked out that video that Project Veritas dropped earlier? Yes, we've talked about it. Quiet Rioter says, Donald or Biden winning the Electoral College doesn't matter. We're going to see a sequel to 2000, and then we will see. Very likely. Austin M says, if Trump holds Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, then flips Nevada, he can surrender Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan. Yep, that's very true. Boomer Doomer says, Nick, why did you let Kiwi Chris in your house take aim in Minecraft? He has a short red shirt on. They just called you Kiwi Chris. Rude.
I don't know where that's coming from.
You don't
want
want
your head examined there, buddy.
The Wanderer says, how does the Electoral College work? Does it go by delegates by each county in a state, or does it go off popular vote in a state? Overwhelmingly majority of states, it's popular vote in the state. Bowser Jr.'s descendant says, blue is looking mad sus, not gonna lie. White Tower Guard says, love the reference to King Ralph. Hey, from central Alberta, maybe they should also take his advice to shoot, shovel, and shut up, lol. Alex D says, Michigan kept having votes show up after hours with 150,000 plus boxes of all Biden votes last night. F this, Trump should start a militia if he loses.
You gotta keep counting until you get the number you want.
So I said, if you're losing in Michigan, just keep counting in Detroit. Fox McCloud says, I got an absentee ballot without asking for it in Michigan. Please let this go to SCOTUS.
Yeah, that's there may be something to that. That there may be an angle on that. We'll see.
Kimberly Moriarty says, can we just go to caucus everywhere? I don't know. Cemetery Lady says, just got a text message that the state of California only got my ballot today, but they're still going to count it though. Is that even legal? I have the text message saved. In most states, if you mailed it prior to election day, they will count it after election day. If you mailed it on election day, they didn't allow it. It's a weird sort of thing, but I don't know what California has.
Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. Most of these irregularities don't matter because in the scheme of things, there's not very many of them, right?
No, and and again, we've talked about this a few times. What's the remedy? Okay, right. Yeah, I can prove the fraud and I can get you arrested and sent to jail. What's the remedy? How do I fix it? I can't just say, well, you defrauded out 4,000 votes, so we're just going to go take 4,000 votes and wipe it off of Biden.
No, I do think they will. I do think you can challenge the defective ballots. You can do that, but you got to prove they're defective. I mean,
Yeah.
Bob the Troll King says, quote, if we keep counting ballots, we'll get more Biden positive results. Wait, I've heard that one before. Yeah, that's my... I've never seen a recount net red votes. I've just not seen it.
Republicans are too concerned with actually determining who won rather than winning, if that makes any sense. You know, Al Franken and Norm Coleman was the classic example. Coleman showed up to accurately count the vote. Franken showed up to knock Coleman off and get ballots kicked out.
Yep.
You know, and Republicans, you know, if we act like wussies, we're going to lose. You know.
Yeah. Let's see. Colin says, Alaskan here, we never do. Lol. I think that was never go, Blue. Was the answer to that.
Get
Baddox,
rid of Murkowski, please, for the love of God, Alaska. Sorry.
Baddox the Great says, how about the mentally ill path of a single faithless elector abstaining from voting Biden and making it a 269 to 268 race, sending it to Congress to decide.
The chaos of it.
Oh. Everyone and their pipe dreams.
It won't happen.
Yeah.
Random
Being
username
is a pretty big deal in the local.
Random username says, breaking, Maricopa is now closing after Trump gaining ground due to concerns about unrest from sizable crowds protesting vote counting per CNN. This is back at 11:45. That was a ways back. Yap Yap says, DEFCON 26, they taught kids how to hack elections in a day. Some machines ran Windows XP with Wi-Fi enabled and 15-year-old database code. Fraud is guaranteed. Imperial Lumpia says, if Biden wins, would that accelerate the decline of mainstream news and social media like Twitter, etc.? If so, how does that affect the next election? We'll have to wait and see for both of those.
That's an open question.
Yeah.
Hey, does Twitter shut Trump down while he's doing all this? Do they have the balls to do that?
Well, I hope not. And so at the same time, Kara Pappas.
I could see Trump issuing an executive order and triggering some emergency provision to shut Twitter down.
Yeah. Kara Pappas for election fraud or election interference. I mean, that'd be really interesting. Kara Pappas says if Biden wins Georgia, they'll win the Senate and it's all over. They think we're all Nazis. They will remove us from society any way they can.
We're somewhat well armed for that to be an option.
Random Blaze says you still have a chance to watch another horror movie, Nick. Labyrinth is on Prime. You get to have the horror of seeing David Bowie's crotch bulge for an hour or so.
You can see that in almost all of his music videos. It's really not that big a deal anymore.
Shadower Shad says, is there a penalty for locking out observers? Maybe. It's hard to say. You know, but okay, I know they locked out observers in some places, but there's also reports, and don't excoriate me, these are just reports, that there were already observers in the room. And hundreds more observers came up, and that's who got locked out.
And if you're acting belligerent as an observer, they absolutely can kick you out.
Yeah, they can just call the police or kick you out. If you don't, call the police.
Like if you're yelling and screaming, saying, I challenge that vote, I'm challenging that one, you know.
They'll toss you.
Sometimes people get very heated and animated, and yeah, it happens. You get tossed out.
Barb Rogers, Little Miss Sunburn says, Operation Red Mirage. That one guy says, what Ty was trying to say about the mail-in ballots is that they could use your name to find your address and then use that to find the mail carrier. Yeah. Never mind. I'm not going to revisit it. Kara Papa says, Trump's legal team in the Supreme Court is now the only thing that can save our country, our lives, and our families. Trump can actually also just win. Still, it's possible.
I don't know. Take responsibility for our lives and get on with them and not rely on a court or a president or anything else.
White Tower Guard says Canada is the reverse. We have federal paramountcy, but it took Alberta 30 years to get resource rights after joining Google National Energy Program. Someone says they kicked Nick Somberg out for touching his mask to breathe out his nose. Look, Nick Somberg is the guy who was at one point representing Lucas Gerhardt, I believe. I'm not going to take anything he says with any credibility.
You have to have a certain degree of willingness to believe that lawyers are assholes.
And because you're not allowed any recording equipment inside those inside a counting room, it's just his word.
Mr. Obi-Wan. Mr. Obi-Wan 2020 says if Biden wins, we just have to hope he survives till 2024, which scares me. Did I read this? White Tower Guard says Canada is the reverse with federal paramountcy, but it took Alberta 30 years to get resource rights after joining Google National Energy Program.
National Energy Program was started by Pierre Trudeau, considered the origin of the Western separatist movement when it became a serious movement. It's really screwed Alberta over pretty hard.
I'm struggling with the idea of a Canadian revolutionary group. Sorry.
Again, it's full body contact curling. That's how we settle our disputes.
Well, I bet if y'all get riled, it really, you know. By the way, the most badass unit of World War II in the entire world, bar none, was a unit called the First Special Services Force. It was the Canadians were half of that unit, Americans were the other half. So,
Penal Ryan says Joe won't even remember what promises he's made. He's running for Senate, I've heard. Carapapa says Georgia's going into a runoff. If both of them go D, they will have the majority. They will stack the court. Will be done. I think that's
if
unlikely.
a frog had wings.
Cheech says OH. Eric's Neil 20 says, actually, I had a lot of hopes that required Trump to win. With Biden in office, it will be another 4 years of big tech and monopoly hell. I think we were going to have that with, frankly, I think we were still going to have that with Trump, but maybe I'm naive. Eric's Neil 20 says, sorry, I have to ask, you guys have any thoughts on the disappointing loss of Johnny Depp's case? I think it was unfair and ignored the evidence. He tried to sue a UK newspaper in the UK. I don't think it was that surprising to have him lose that case. I really don't. I just not a huge fan of their legal system. Inquisitor Jack says ATF will Ruby Ridge gun owners at executive order gleefully. Republicans are natural backstabbers. We're not getting another outside candidate. Fox McLeod says it's entirely unlikely, but what happens if a candidate wins and the entirety of the military refuses to acknowledge them as a president? Well, then you have a military coup, and that's terrifying. Reagan
It's
Lodge.
not going to happen for military. I mean,
Reagan Lodge says, me and friends formed a pact to not coom until Trump wins. Channel all of our power to the final victory. Hashtag edging for Trump. Good luck, pal.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that support, I guess.
Dimes Recon B4 says it is precedent of precincts, not votes. Or it is percent of precincts, not votes. Okay. Joshua Vidrine. Oh, that's what the percentage of.
That's what
Arizona
I was asking
places.
last night, though. But aren't precincts roughly the same? I guess they wouldn't be, though.
They're very different.
Right. That they'd be expected to have different. Oh, okay.
We'll see. Joshua Vidrine says establishment is doing everything to win, and winning for them is removing Trump. Winning for everyone is helicoptering all of them in Minecraft. Tony Neves says there was an election in North Carolina that got a judge-ordered redo because of even the appearance of shenanigans. Could provide an opening if HAMR, maybe harm. But don't wasn't that a city council election? Someone was saying that's not a presidential election, and there's all sorts of problems with it. So I don't know about the case, but who knows? Carapapa says Supreme Court would have to step in massively to dispute the multiple states, and if they do, it will loom over the next 4 years. Joshua Vidrine says, all I know is if Dems send the feds to look for me, they're going to have a good time navigating the Rockies after I release the Claymore-strapped rabbits. Robert Levito says people in Vegas can count cards, but apparently ballots are too hard. Avahine says Schrodinger's cat says until the coolers are open, they contain both ballots for Biden and delicious sandwiches from Jason's Deli. By the way, Trump will have more time to focus on tweeting. Michael Tynan says, remember, there's no crying in baseball. Everyone man up. Thanks, guys, for the insights and entertainment. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said.
Dax Terminax says, just adding funding for batteries for Ty's glasses. And everyone take a drink if Nick mispronounced my name again. And if he did, I blame Dick. Oh, I did! Damn, it's Dex Terminax. It should rhyme with Terminax. It should be Dex Terminax. Paper Shaper says, can faithless electors help El Trumpo win? No.
They're not going to.
Matches Burn says, South Carolina here. Can we just secede again? Cal Clay says, can a former president be named VP? VP Trump 2024? Yeah. They just can't if they have already run or have already served for 8 years. Cal Clay also says Trump appraised America on show called Curiosity. Inquisitor Jack says Crenshaw will gladly kick in my door for red flag gun confiscation, but he talks a good game and sounds principled.
He's not perfect.
Bloody Thumb says Terry Schiavo and Kurt Cobain for 2024. Oh, meow.
Well, we know they already
that
voted.
strikes me as a lot funnier than it should.
Oh Meow Comics says, Oi, my fantasy comic Bardic Fury 4, the Banshee Vale horror show is live on Indiegogo. A hurling match between rival villages in Iron Age Ireland goes wrong. A battle of the bards for the ages. Check out Bardic Fury 4, guys, on Indiegogo. Edimos 1000 says, when you said crack a cold one with the boys, I thought you were talking about RBG's Crypt. Barb Rogers, Little Miss Sunburn says, if you analyze the whole thing, it reeks of a psyop. Tarapar says, I hate that I can't trust anything from MSM on this. Losing the trust of half the country is the worst blunder here for the DNC and CNN at all. La Dinosaur Jones says, if in Louisiana, we have to show ID at the poll, sign a poll roll, which says if someone already voted, and vote using an electronic ballot. Twilight Dragon 3 says, did you see the video of the Biden supporter asking protesters to be peaceful? Apparently being peaceful is white supremacy. Gotta love when they eat their own. Cabo Narasuzu says, if Biden wins, we are heading for an EU-style lockdown because we have to, quote, follow the science, CDC, etc. That means no sale extension. I lose job.
I don't think the feds have the authority to order a national lockdown. Nor do they have the practical ability to enforce it.
I read an idiot say that they did in a paper, in a New York Times opinion piece or something like that. And he was apparently a lawyer, but...
Wait. You're saying that there's an idiot who works for the New York Times?
They do exist.
And who's a lawyer? God, whoever heard of that.
Tony Neve says, Nick's comment on the Philippines basketballs, or basketballs or no basketballs. No, that's not what it was. Not at all. Alan Ravenick says, what are your thoughts on North Carolina freezing their votes? North Carolina has until the 6th, or no, 6 days, I think, from the 3rd, so until the 9th to finish counting mailed-in votes. So that might be why they are freezing them. Although I think, aren't they at 100%? And
there's still more to count. I think it's the 12th. I think we're not getting another update out of North Carolina until November 12th.
So it'd have to be a pretty big swing for Biden. Trump is still...
Yeah, and a lot of the vote has already come out of Charlotte and Raleigh. So I think in the end, we're going to see a pretty decent margin for Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh. Hi in the chat. Kidda says, apparently Trump vetoed the Patriot Act extension in May.
He is, Nick. You have to admit. I'm being fair.
I don't know what you're responding to.
Yeah, it's idiotic.
Apparently Trump vetoed the Patriot Act extension in May. Press completely ignored. Yeah, he did. Now let's see it never change. Robert Levito says, I have some Japanese pesos and other versions. Neat stuff. Want some, Ty? Lol.
Well, no, I appreciate it. They are kind of interesting looking bills, though. They're weird. I don't know if they're based off the actual Philippine currency or what, but they look sort of like monopoly money that sort of looks like American money. It's hard to explain.
No, Patrick Ells says, the fact that this is still ongoing and so very close is scary. President Trump should have had this a long time ago. Shenanigans are happening. Dr. Teeth says, my father's an electrician who voted Trump and spent the last 4 years talking about how much he regrets it. So there you go. No One Important says, my sisters won't listen to me, so I'll say it here. Please do not burn bridges and decades of friendships or relationships just over a vote. It's not worth it. I agree. Chewy Muse says, hey, Ricada, longtime fan since the Mark Zaid and Wade days. You should talk about how California almost voted Prop 16 in, which would have removed discrimination protection from companies. It was 44% yes. I probably will be talking about that soon. What's
yeah,
that?
So Prop 16, which is the affirmative action clause. See, you have this cool thing called the U.S. Constitution. So when affirmative action is implemented, well, your Constitution prevents discrimination, including reverse discrimination. In Canada, our Constitution actually has a provision that says you may discriminate to correct a past wrong. So affirmative action is protected by our Charter of Rights.
God, I hate
that
Canada.
really wasn't y'all's best move. That really wasn't a great move.
So, very interesting. That got defeated.
The thing is, that's the only people that seem to actually like reverse discrimination are liberal white people who are typically in charge of the reverse discrimination or have inputs into it. It's not really all that popular with minorities here. I mean, it's unfair, and Americans, I think, generally intuitively want the fair solution. And I wasn't surprised at all that it got shot down, by the way.
A bad vibe says, here's the irony. Questioning the faith in the voting system is a double-edged sword. It can motivate or discourage both sides. It's a tough call. However, the accusation has impact. Be careful. Mars Ultor says, regardless of who wins, the GOP would do well to invest in on-the-ground poll watchers and auditors in every blue city in the U.S. Kyle Robertson says, as an outsider looking in, I just want to say thank you guys for being 1,000% more sane than Twitter. You're welcome. Too Lazy says, did you talk about the watermarked?
Where you find them, Nick?
Did you talk about the watermarked ballots? The postmarked ballots? I don't know anything about the watermarked ballots. I don't know. Joshua Vidrine says, keep your rifle by your side. Hope County Choir. Blaine 20 says, I've been collecting evidence of election fraud on my timeline on Twitter today. Guys, go check out Blaine's timeline. Grim Sayer says, just joined, so sorry if you've already seen it, but did you see Project Veritas had a video today about Michigan USPS whistleblower, ballots being stamped with yesterday's date so they're not late? Yes. Jack Riley says, do you need a college education to even join a campaign? No. I'm looking around in Tarrant County, and I'll admit I have no idea where to start.
Go to your local Republican Party headquarters.
Yep.
Or just send an email to your local representative.
Email. That's an electronic thing that you can do now, right?
But they do actually look at them, and they'll get a staffer to respond to you.
You have to type in the email address on your computer, but you have to use a ball-peen hammer for hitting each key.
Oh, okay. Well, good, because my typewriter ribbon's dried out, and I was afraid I was going to have to use my typewriter. So.
If you just flip the ribbon over, Ty, you're fine.
Already done it. It's
Peter Pete says, did you hear about the new 007 is a woke black woman lesbian? I shit you not. Yes, I've heard about it.
Somebody says watermark ballots. Most ballots have hidden watermarks and are harder to counterfeit. I don't know that counterfeit ballots, though, are going to be the problem.
No, I think the problem with the mail-in ballots and absentee ballots is twofold. You've either got people receiving multiple threefold. Receiving multiple ballots, either due to a glitch or because they're allowed to request multiple or because they request one and get one automatically, whatever. Or stealing someone else's absentee ballot or mail-in ballot, just taking it right out of their mailbox. When Adam was on the show, he said if you know when they go out in sections to the city at the same time. So one area of a place will get all of their absentee ballots at the same time in their mailbox, and you could just go mailbox to mailbox and grab them. Or the third one, you vote by absentee ballot or mail-in ballot, and then you walk in on election day and vote and get double counted. Those are all possibilities, and they're ripe for a potential fraud. So, Cemetery Lady says, I didn't mail it. I voted in person. They only accepted it today, and they said they'll count it sometime later. Derpy Jew says, yo, Nick, when you do a watch party next time, watch Steel Sharks, Gary Busey, and Billy D. Williams. Who's the Canadian Tim Pool? Just kidding.
I've seen that a couple of times. I keep getting called the Canadian Tim Pool.
You know who Derpy Jew is, right? That's Neo from the Discord. Tachyon Black says, Ty, have you ever played Panzer Shrek or Panzer Leader? If so, what's your favorite game in that vein?
I don't think I've played Panzer Shrek. Panzer Leader is the West Front version of Panzer Blitz, which was the original tactical tabletop war game. You can't really actually be an old school war gamer if you haven't played this game. It's still a fun game. My own Miniature Rules Fistful of Toes has a certain DNA from that game. So anyway.
Evan Campbell, I am way too tall to be a Canadian Ben Shapiro. Maybe hit up Magnus.
Cheech says, we don't care about the whole state of Minnesota. I'm from Ohio. Stay safe. #1 grifter. Hey, thanks, Cheech. Passport says, Virginia, with the red flag laws and the lockdowns, prove that the right won't do anything and will just take the whatever. Alex D says, if he wins, Would Biden need an outside military to come for our guns? I feel like our military would refuse as we swore to uphold the Constitution. Yeah, the hardest part about gun confiscation is doing it.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
America, especially.
That's really something you want someone else to do. I'm actually involved with someone on the chat now. If I could just say this, it'd be a lot faster. I would be clacking. Look, hundreds of thousands of American troops could not pacify Iraq, and there was no more than 40,000 insurgents at any given time. There's ample comparable evidence in the Vietnam War, in the Afghan War, hell, even the British in Malaysia, which was the best fought guerrilla war on the part of the colonial power ever. Now, I'm getting tired of, the army will just pacify, just take the American. We've got 150 million well-armed, pissed-off Americans. There's no army in the universe that could pacify a continent with that many people. And you're just an idiot for continuing to say that. There's no evidence. It's illogical. So stop.
Okay. 2 more. And Overdose on Red Pills says, never Trumpers don't matter. Trump effed up by waiting till last minute to do anything about the big tech censorship machine pushing propaganda. And the other issue is the media lying constantly during his entire presidency, turning off independence. I'm not sure what he actually could have done effectively about that, but okay.
I think Trump might agree that his priorities could have been better, but I don't think they were that bad. I kind of like that whole filling the courts up.
Yeah, well, who knows? Who knows? Knight of Hopex says, don't count on the guns. They'll just take your job, your property, and your reputation. By the time we need to secede, I fear it will already be too late. I'm in my 30s, so I'm guaranteed a death camp in my lifetime. You're lucky you may not be here by then.
Well, apparently it's no big loss, if that's your attitude.
There you go. All right.
Sorry. Late night, man.
All right, gentlemen. Any final thoughts? Otherwise, the stream is done. What do you? Anything? I think there's a lot of doom saying, look, it's okay to be discouraged by some stuff, but I want to say, just breathe, let the process play out. If Trump loses, it's really not the end of the world, because it's honestly, if the Republicans keep the Senate, narrow margin in the House, there's a very likely chance that midterm elections swing the House Republican, and we have basically 4 years of gridlock, and then we get to see what happens. Things could go bad. They could also go not so bad. Usually things don't go as bad as people say. Knight of Hopex does say, fuck you too, buddy.
Fair enough.
So
okay. See, you're not quite as pathetic as your message indicated.
There you go.
Channel some of that when you're saying, oh, doom and gloom. Just say fuck you to the world. It's okay.
Okay. I will say it one more time. Twitch.tv/Recato Law. We'll be watching RoboCop in just a little bit after the stream ends. Tim, any final thoughts?
No, just thank you very much for having me here. I hope you cover a lot more political stuff in the future. I think they're a lot of fun. I think the people love watching it. And the intersection between law and politics is a lot closer than you think.
Yeah, no, I probably will cover it, at least for a while. I mean, at least for a while. We'll see what happens. I've been avoiding following politics for a while for my own health, but maybe it's time to dip the toes back in a little bit. So we'll see. More commentary to come, more stuff to come in the short future. There's plenty to watch for over the next couple weeks as the election materializes, and then we'll see what happens going forward. Cemetery Lady with the final chat says, did you read my other super chat? Yes, I didn't vote by mail. I voted in person. You said, yeah, we read that. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Because, I had assumed you meant you registered or you mailed in your vote, but you're saying that they tracked your vote and sent you an email that that they got your vote late, but it will be counted until whatever. I don't know what that means or indicates, but thank you for sharing. Yes, chat, please smash the like button if you're still here. Also, please come to Twitch if you've never done a watch party, especially if you're in the US. RoboCop is great. All right, guys, we'll see you in a bit. Thank you to my guests, and we'll talk to you guys both very soon.
See you, Ty.
Tim, good to interact.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Peace. Peace.